Actually, I do not see Lisa.
I thought I saw her here earlier. Maybe I'm mistaken, but I thought I did.
Okay.
Lisa Connors
Lisa is
is
showing up
there.
as host.
Yeah, she's listed as host.
There we go.
She's at the top instead of in alpha order.
Okay. So Lisa, go ahead and move.
Jose is up. He just needs
There
presenter
we
role
go.
real quickly.
There we go. Welcome,
I have
Jose.
it now, so I'll share my content. Sorry about that.
No problem. And Alvarez was as an attendee as well.
Yeah, we'll get. I'll check with Lisa to bring him up.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so this is the agenda, the draft agenda that was sent around. Are there any changes to the agenda tonight? Okay, all right, then let's dive right in at this point, and let's see how things go tonight. But at this point, we only have one more task force meeting scheduled to get through the interim task force recommendations. And that's before getting more detailed response and feedback from staff. We might see another meeting or so added to that, but let's see how things go. So with that, let's go right into item number 3. Len, I'm going to turn it over to you, and I stalled about 2 or 3 minutes so you could think about John's question.
That's okay. We actually had some good gree going before we started this with Chris and Liv. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We're going to provide the task force with an updated presentation. Oh, there we go. That's my first slide of the presentation. This is the first baby attending the task force meeting.
Very good.
Okay. So I want to first of all, and I think you all saw my email that I sent to Walter and Jose, and I just want to thank everyone who participated on the land use and design chapter working group, and that's Dennis Hayes, Tammy Petrine, Jennifer Juszczyk, Gary Maupin, John Carter, and we did have some assistance from Michelle Kimmel. So I just want to thank you all so much. And I also want to extend a debt of gratitude to everyone on the task force that provided us with their edits, and to you, Walter, for giving us the opportunity to put this chapter together. So you've seen this before, excuse me. What we've done is we've kind of changed the structure of the land use chapters. So the outline really looks at area-wide approaches. We've done this before. We've seen this slide before. So we look at land use and design for the transit station areas first within the chapter. And in each of the chapters or the subheads within the chapter, you'll notice that there is an introduction, and then each area has a recommendation, whether that is presented in design and placemaking or a recommendation for that area. So we have TSAs, village centers, convenience centers, other commercial areas, and then of course Reston neighborhoods. Now, what we've done is we've provided an area-wide approach, and we really do think that the way that the information is presented in this land use chapter is going to be very easy for the reader to digest and to understand what the approach and what the recommendations are. Again, we are providing both recommendations for residential. And we can go through some of these. I'll just point out some of the highlights. We have multifamily housing within a half mile of the 3 metro stations in the TSA. We talk about preservation of the existing residential neighborhoods. retention of modest or missing middle. You hear that talked about a lot. Single family homes, townhomes, and multifamily homes. And then preservation of affordable housing in older low-rise multifamily and townhouse areas, and that includes village centers. There is a focus on work WDUs and ADUs, as you can see in the last two bullets. And I do want to point out the beautiful montage of residential features. We have such a, it's just a splendid diversity of architecture within Reston as well. And you can see that in these images that are provided. In non-residential, some of the area-wide approaches, recommendations are a new civic center with a new library, elementary school, and you've seen this before, I know. Opportunities for significant new Class A office and retail development, opportunities for smaller offices, local retail and public uses, commercial areas for larger retail stores and destination retail areas, industrial service, commercial offices and hotel uses along the Dulles Toll Road and beyond. And then also expanding the existing hospital and medical uses. And we'd really like to see that on the southern side of the toll road. Again, please take note of the graphic images. So in terms of the area-wide approach to the comp plan, you'll see in this land use chapter that the transit station area is highlighted in addition to the Reston neighborhoods and the integration of the TSA with those neighborhoods and how we work together. So we have divided the chapter into TOD and non-TOD, and we have broken out the TOD districts and the non-TOD districts within each of those metro areas to make it easier for folks that are going to be developing in those areas to understand what the recommendations are that they would be working within. Now, we are going to be making some recommended edits to the Reston land use map, and that is in the chapter text as footnotes to the Reston land use map. And it basically has to do with the Charter Oak parcel that is mislabeled as high density. And we are also recommending that the office legend on the left side of the page be renamed office/industrial flex. That is the use that is approved for those areas, and we thought that it would be more descriptive. Now, when we get into the calculations, I do want to, John Mooney, I want to thank you for your late edits that came in, and we did note those. So we will be talking about how we handle those later. But this isn't anything new to this task force. I think this is probably about the third or fourth time that you've been seeing the residential and non-residential calculations that have come through. And again, the incredible graphics that will be included, that are included in the chapter. So within the, we're going to start diving into the different, as John calls them, the geographic areas. So we're going to start with the transit station areas, or TSAs. And we do have the 3 TSAs that are identified here. Starting from the left, the Herndon Station, the Reston Town Center Station, and Wheelie Station. And you'll notice this map just below on the lower left side. And the numbers that you see here, this is a new edition. We thought that this would add a lot of clarity and would give folks a way of understanding what the FAR. So these numbers that you see are FAR for the transit station mixed use and residential. It's actually, yeah, transit station mixed use and residential mixed use. So, you know, again, we've got incredible graphics that show the accomplishments that we've made to date, and you will be seeing what has been approved, and then we'll talk about what the recommendations are going forward. And again, the map that you see in the upper left of your screen, this shows what the district, so you've got the transit station area that is kind of the gold colored legend, and then the districts are outlined in the black, and some of these sub-districts that are labeled as well. Okay, so we're going to get into the different transit-oriented development areas. So this is Town Center Station, TOD. So they're each of the TODs. So we have the 50-50 residential, non-residential, and the 75-25. And that's 75% residential and 25% non-residential, in case you're wondering what that is. And then, of course, the map in the upper left quadrant shows what the FAR designations are for those areas. These graphics, for those of you who've seen some of the site plans, we wanted you to be able to look at these and know what they pertain to. So we have very nice graphics showing the plans for Gateway. It's also now called Next, as well as Halley Rise. Gateway Next is, I guess we see that the this first building is complete. I don't know if they're being occupied yet. Then we get into Town Center non-TOD. So the non-TOD areas, and again, you can see in the lower left corner a blow up of that that area of that Town Center Station and the sub-districts. So again, this is a way of aggregating the information within the land use chapter to make it easier for folks that are interested in a particular district or sub-district to be able to go directly to that area in the land use chapter and see what's going on with that parcel. We've all seen this one before. I think this is probably number 4 that you've been seeing this. This is nothing new. This is a sample of what's going on with Town Center North. And this pretty much maps to what is being proposed. Okay, now we move into the Wheelie Station, TOD. And again, we have the FAR in the upper left corner. So we all know what building that is to the right of the FAR map. And if you look at the site design in the lower left half, you can see in the upper left quadrant is Isaac Newton Square. And then coming down below to the lower part of the page, we've got Comstock, and then of course the midline development that is approved. So those are approved and are in process. So getting into the Wheelie Station non-TODs, so we've got this broken out by Reston East and Sunset Hills. And I do have to let you all know that these categories, so what we've done with TOD and descriptions of what that area encompasses, has not been changed from the previous plan. So this is just taking what has already been defined in the previous plan, and we're just adding clarity and ease of use to the plan. And we do feel that it's extremely important to provide graphical images to folks. So as you saw the latest iteration of the land use chapter, there is a plethora of graphical images. We've created tables from text so that it's much easier for folks to read and understand what the recommendations are. But anyway, getting into the Wheelie Station non-TODs, we have Reston East, as you can see depicted in the dark blue. And then we have Sunset Hills, which is depicted in the purple on that map. And then getting into the Herndon Station TODs, there's north and south of the toll road. Let's enter the FAR. Looks like it's really just south, but the 50-50, the residential, non-residential, and the 75-25. This really includes the wetlands. You can see some images here of the station itself. And then we have the Woodland Park.
Hey,
And
Lynn,
I
let
do
me
have
just jump
to,
in real quick.
yes.
The reason the north side is blank, that's town of Herndon. That's why.
Thank you, Walter.
Yeah.
Just on top of that, Herndon has its own separate plan. Most of those buildings that are in their approved plan are in the 14 to 16 story, backing down to 12 and 10. It's
Perfect.
gone through about 3 iterations so far.
Thank you, Mark. Interesting to know. But again, looking at the Herndon Station, so we're now into the non-TODs. And again, these are south of the, excuse me, toll road. So we do have Woodland Park. I think all of these images here are Woodland Park. So okay, and then the chapter moves into village centers. So, excuse me, as you can see on this map, we have 2 village centers highlighted here, North Point and then Lake Anne. And Lake Anne is the existing plan. There are really no, excuse me, I can tell I've been talking too much. There are really no changes to this Lake Anne Village Center. This is the existing plan. And then the south side of the toll road is South Lakes and Hunter's Woods. And again, the graphical images add to the understanding of what these village centers look like. And again, we get into the convenience centers and other commercial areas. So the convenience centers are indicated by the black circles in the map on the left. So there's Lake House, Hidden Creek, Sunrise Valley Drive, and Soapstone. And then the other commercial areas are the Home Depot and Cameron Green. And again, the images provide you with some indication of what those look like. And then finally, we get into the residential neighborhoods, and this is single family and multifamily. And I do want to point out, with the Reston land use map, you can see these big swaths of green on the north and the south side of the toll road. And I thought that it would behoove us to take a look at how, when the open space was designated for Reston, density moved into other PRC areas. So we can see this map of, this is the north course, and we can see that there is a plethora of multifamily, single family housing, and single family detached and single family attached. So this really kind of shows what that cluster concept looks like. And then again, we have some incredible graphics of the variety of architecture that that Reston offers. And that concludes my presentation. And congratulations, Chris.
Thank you
So
so
I
much,
will-
Lynn.
Chris, I think you stole the show, but Lynn, thank you. Thank you very much for that presentation. Lynn, how do you want to go from here? Do you just want to take questions, or should we put up the document that was sent around last Thursday? What do you think?
Well, so I do want to share that I did go back and look at where we've been so far. I think in terms of the land use working group, I think that we have probably been the most, I think that this document has been the most edited. I counted 2,156 edits to the original chapter. And I think at some point we really need to say, this is it. You know, this is holding us up from getting to our endpoint. So I guess my question back to you, Walter, is is it time to say, you know, let's save any additional edits until after we hear back from staff? And can we just take a vote on what we've got, or do we need to go back and look at the edits again and send out an updated draft?
Well, my guess is there's some folks that just saw this draft on Thursday or Friday that, well, what is folks, I'd be open for anybody expressing an opinion on how they want to move forward with this.
I've got a suggestion. I don't know if it would work. I wonder if we couldn't go geographic area by geographic area and get the sort of highline sense of where people are. And then if there are specific edits, I guess we could do that, but stick to the high things for a while to see if we could move forward. And I would start from the neighborhoods back up to the TSAs, see if we can't cross off as many geographic areas as possible. And then we have one big vote at the end, if we can get there. Would that work?
Any thoughts on that?
Sure.
Is John Mooney on the call?
Yes, I am, Lynn.
Oh, there's John.
Would that work for you?
That's fine. I gave a thumbs up.
Oh, okay. And
We didn't see your
Mr.
thumbs up.
Penniman, I just want to, the folks that had provided edits, I would like their feedback on that idea.
This is Mike Jennings, and thanks, Lynn. I'm just going to say I can't imagine going through all these comments and providing feedback, and the majority of edits and things you provided very cogent feedback. I mean, there's a couple of my insertions which all it said was insertion rejected, and it would be nice to know what was behind that and maybe talk about it. But in terms of going through the document as has just been suggested, I think that would work as long as we can get to some of these things.
Okay, why don't we start with the neighborhoods? That's all right, Lynn. I don't mean to.
No, that's good. That's good.
So what are the comments on the neighborhoods? Are there any comments on the neighborhoods? Did we say enough about them?
Just as a general matter, since we only got this on Thursday, I think you're pushing fairly hard to move beyond things. Some of us have had a chance to read it, but not necessarily think through. Now, in the area of the neighborhoods, I doubt that there were many changes, but some of the other areas there were significant ones.
So let's see if anybody else has
I mean,
comments
in
on
the
the neighborhood.
neighborhoods, we all agree that everybody agrees that they ought to be protected.
Okay, so why don't we move up to the,
Wait. In the neighborhood section, both Bill Penman and I had a comment about the language on the golf courses on page 72. And we were both more like, let's leave the language as it is. And I was particularly thinking we should not cross off the word golf courses are planned for private recreation use. That word has been crossed off, and I think it needs to be left in because they really are planned for private recreation use. So
I would debate that one is a public course.
but
Fine.
that it should at least be focused on a golf. I mean, these are not, I can't go jogging on down the greens if I want to. I mean,
There are pathways through the golf courses that are public.
then why do I see signs that say stay off these paths unless you're, when the golf course is open?
I don't want you to get
that
hit
accurate,
with the ball.
Lynn?
Could I ask?
Yeah, Bill, go ahead, Bill.
Could I ask a question? Yeah, I mean, on the language on the golf courses, I'm not sure quite where Mike is referring to because my copy only went to page 66. That's what printed anyway. On page 64, there is a recommendation pertaining to the golf course, which I believe, and you can confirm it, Lynn, that's exactly the language that's in the current plan. Am I right about that?
Are
It's
you
the
talking
Reston tax
page?
map language,
Yes.
64. That's what, yeah.
Bill, my pages are,
And that's exactly
from the red line version. That's why it's different.
Oh, okay. Okay. I mean, the language that's in the existing plan, as I indicated previously, Walter doesn't want to try and resolve those here. I'm fine with that. So leaving the language that's in the existing plan exactly as is per this paragraph is a reasonable thing to do. So I don't know where else
We did take out that that they are planned for private recreation use. It was that they are planned for recreation use. So,
But private is in the existing plan,
right.
and I think it should stay in there.
Okay.
I thought it was still in there. Is
It's
it not
crossed
still
out
in
the
there?
red line.
Can
Oh,
I
couldn't
just
read
ask?
the red line.
Can we vote on this and just move on?
Well, hold on. I think Gary had a question. Gary?
Well, I think one of the golf courses is not private. It's not intended to be private. And
They're
there is
both
that-
zoned for I mean, the land use is private recreation use. Whether it is a public course or a private course, they're still privately owned.
Then I'll leave it to you, Lynn.
And if Donald Trump brought them, we'd face a different.
We'll all be moving. Toot sweet.
I'll be moving to Canada. No, kidding. Kidding.
I'm
No, I
not sure
think
what the
that
private versus public, what the difference is when it comes to a land use plan. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Well, because
John
I think
is,
I think taking private out leaves you with the impression that it's a public open space available for anybody to utilize and enjoy and go, walking, and that's not the case. And I just, and as Bill said, we talked about, we're not going to, discuss the golf courses. So why would we be changing this language?
The RA has pathways across both that are
Yeah.
open to public.
That's the trouble
All-
we've had.
So I don't know
Negative easement.
why you're making this designation that the public doesn't have access
I do.
to Hidden Creek and to Reston National. they do.
Right,
They're ma-
across about, 400 yards of pathways. I mean, it's
Well,
disingenuous to say,
sledding and cross-country skiing on the golf courses in the wintertime. So those are open. I mean, people utilize the golf courses when they are not being used for golf.
And you can walk across them,
Mike,
and they're a green space. I mean,
Is there any other comment on the neighborhoods beside the density, the land use kind of characteristics? Is there anything else? Is this the only thing we have to resolve?
Looks like it.
Okay. Well, I don't know, Lynn, what do you think? We could, I don't like discussing,
think that if-
frankly, the public versus private. In a land use plan, it seems awkward when we have
oh, I had
an odd
had a question.
situation. in
I did
Reston.
have a
Yes,
question.
yes, good.
I did have a question. And that is, on page 65, it appears to say that the property of the church, St. John Newman, is outside of Reston, outside of this task force, and yet it still makes a recommendation. And I thought we were told
Fix that. We should
in
fix
other
that
settings
language.
that if it was outside, it shouldn't be there.
We should fix that language.
Yeah, but
It's
we
inside
converge.
Reston. It's inside Reston. That's probably our mistake. Is there anything else? So what should,
I think that if the golf courses are off limits and we made an agreement that we were not going to change the language in the plan, that I guess we should put back the private and leave it the way that it was from the original plan.
I second that if that's a motion.
well, let's just look at that language and see what we can do.
Yeah, and I
that
did hear
fair?
the discussion. That's very helpful.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the, I don't mean to be rushing along, but I am rushing along. If there's no comments,
Well, could I make a motion then
Yes.
that with the amendment of with putting private back into the golf course description and the item that Bill Penniman brought up about the being inside of Reston, and that was the church. Could we get a second to approve the neighborhood section as amended?
So move.
Is there any discussion?
no, but Lynn, I think if we go through this all, we'll be picking up onesies and twosies here. And if we can just move through this and then come back around.
All we have are onesies and twosies. We'll get to an approved land use chapter, Gary.
is there anybody opposed to that notion of moving forward on the neighborhoods?
No.
Why don't we move to the
I'm for moving
other
forward.
commercial areas?
Should we take a vote
Yes,
Hey.
as amended?
yes.
Would that be okay, Jose? Is everybody okay with that approach?
So this is Looney. Can I ask a quick question about procedure relative to this whole thing tonight? Because I can fully anticipate that we'll get to a point in the conversation where we've kind of exhausted the discussion around the land use piece, but the missing element in all of this is how do you access the land use piece relative to this earned density concept? And I don't know how we can vote on one without having had a full conversation about the other. Because, for example, I might choose these numbers that are in the land use section differently depending on how the earned density conversation goes. And so I don't know how we vote on this without coupling that with the earned density concept and approving that as a package. But is that not what you anticipated? You anticipated doing this separately from that, or as
Yes,
one
we
and the
didn't
same?
anticipate going over earned density tonight.
I guess, John, but
I-
voting on one before we vote on the other, or or voting on them together?
Well, let's just vote on this one.
Well, I think we ought to get to the end, Mark. And, you know, urban density is not described in the land use chapter specifically. So,
I would be satisfied. I don't know if
Sure.
everybody else agrees, and I'm
Yeah.
certainly flexible. If we just get a sense of the group, my sense of the group is that neighborhoods are okay. We don't really need to vote. We can just move on. And if we get to the earned density at some point, then we can, I mean,
right.
we can deal with that. And then if we go geographic area by geographic area and get a sense of the group, and then sometime at the end, we can vote to see if we've got a land use chapter that everybody wants. Would
Yeah,
that work
John.
for?
Yeah, John, why don't I encourage what you just described? Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see, because I do want to flush out any issues in the land use chapter draft that's out there.
Yes, that's what we're trying to do. So let's
Right.
move on to the other commercial areas. So I guess folks realize there's no residential in that, and it's limited to 0.25. That's the area that some folks were wanting the big box stores. So we have Home Depot is a big box. We have a little bit of space for that. And then
Where
we
are you-
have Bowman Green, which
John,
gives
where are
you
you
space
talking?
for office. What's that? The other commercial areas is what we're talking about.
I'm sorry, since you're starting from back, it's harder for me to figure out where you are.
Would
So
would
I
it be
wasn't sure. I
helpful
just
for
thought you
me
were
to
up
share the
at
presentation?
Village Centers. Can you give us a page
Yes.
number?
We could
you give us
go
a page
backwards
number?
using the PowerPoint.
Do you want me to share the
Just give me a
presentation?
page number.
62, Bill, page 62 of the cleaned copy.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
maybe as the group talks, Jose can put page 62 up. So that way,
That's good.
anybody that
I-
brings
I-
something up can
here.
get zero right up.
Sorry, I was putting the wrong screen up.
There we go.
Page 62.
Nice colors, by the way.
Thank you.
So are there concerns about Bowman Green or Barron Cameron?
Well, again, the existing plan had a mixed use option for the Barron Cameron area, and I didn't understand why that was eliminated as a possible redevelopment option.
It wasn't clear in the old plan that that was the case. Maybe it was to some, but it wasn't clear to me. We need places for those office uses like that, condominium offices. I was a little surprised that didn't get votes for a heritage resource, since
Yes.
it is a Bowman Green house. So, I mean, what's your pleasure? What do you think? And if you,
This is the Barron Cameron section.
yes, right.
Bowman Green. Oh, you're talking about the Home Depot?
Yeah, in the existing plan, there's an option for mixed use development.
I see. Well,
Can't we
the
keep
choice
Home Depot and a few other big box stores around in Reston so we don't have to go to Ashburn or Tyson's to buy anything?
Plan just said, it is recognized that circumstances may arise that merit consideration for redevelopment of this retail area. That's the preface to it. And I didn't think that was so bad to take out, but
We took it out.
We need some retail. We just need it, guys. We can't get rid of everything.
To be around. There goes the neighborhood, though.
Well, we thought that it benefited this section by removing that, Mike. So I don't know. Do we want to take a vote on?
Is it a sense of the group that you?
No.
Yeah, Bill has a question. Bill, go ahead.
Your small committee meeting, your committee meeting by itself has spent a lot of time thinking and talking about these issues. But now it's being tossed out to us, and some of the language is new. There was an awful lot of redlining in here, and we got it on Thursday afternoon. and you're asking us to go through this 60 whatever page document and vote tonight. And I don't think that's fair. I think the nature of this conversation is questions are being raised and people ought to have the chance to get through the whole package before they're voting on things piece by piece.
That's why I didn't
All
really
laid
want
out,
to
though.
vote.
Bill, I agree with you, but let me just add, Bill, that there's nothing substantive been changed from the presentations that you've seen in the past. So,
Exactly.
and that were commented on.
With all due
So-
respect, this has been like this for the last
Right.
at least month. This has not
More than
recently
month.
been changed.
So there may have been, little corrections, but there's nothing substantive changed at all.
No.
And I do agree with you that, we should just get through this and pick up the items that we're going to talk about as we go through it. But there isn't, changes we talked about, changes in previous versions. I mean,
Right, but the last version I remember seeing is like back in November. Until now. So we haven't seen anything since back then. My comments were made on November 3rd, which is pretty soon after we saw the last version.
But we're
there's
not
nothing
voting on
substantive.
each section. We're not voting.
Well, I mean, the heritage section in itself, I think, recognizes that there's other research that might need to be done in some of these areas. The problem is that there's so many holes across Reston and the county that it was kind of a, how much can I tactically try to identify places? If you feel like it might be something worth helping from a land use perspective and noting it that might incentivize a developer to incorporate a potential resource, I'm all for it, but I don't want to, I didn't want to kind of pepper your plan section with, those ideas, because I could do that in almost every parcel, with the exception of maybe the TSAs, because they're wholly new from that perspective. So,
Well, since it's a condominium and since the density that we have is pretty much it, maybe it's not worth saying much about it.
that was my other feeling, is that in some of these places in here where it's very well established that we're not changing, I kind of pick and chose my battles as to where we could incentivize. So I'll just throw it in now in case I have a crying child. The additions you all added in Association Drive, though, I really appreciate that recognition, even if it may not result in anything. The fact that it's there, that we're acknowledging the potential use, is a step in the right direction at a minimum. So,
okay.
And yes, I am conducting this with a sleeping child in my lap, who may or may not be sleeping anymore.
Good for you.
She looks
If she
okay.
becomes the land use planner one day, you're going to have to come back and answer this.
Did she get to vote?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Are we ready to move on to the?
John and Walter, this is David Vanell. I'm sorry, I'm using a different computer and I can't seem to get the raise hand thing to work on mine. I just had a general comment about the commercial areas and the previous land use plan. It's my opinion that if there is wording about potential mixed use in these areas or any area that we're going to be discussing, if the previous plan has, or the current plan has, the potential for mixed use, I think that removing that has to be pretty strong justification. Even if mixed use is not developed in the next couple of years, I just think that mixed use is especially for these areas and the TSA, of course, is a way to provide more housing, a way to provide different kinds of housing, a way to house different kinds of people, and to remove it, I think, is without a justification. That a written, explainable justification is not good.
So which one would you want, and how many units would you want? Because we need to raise the population if we're going to do that. Did you agree with Home Depot? Is that the one you're picking? Or is
Well,
it
Home Depot and at any point in this document that mixed use was removed. I'm not looking for high density use. I'm looking for mixed use. And yeah, I don't know if the current house or current comprehensive plan lays out density, or it just says potential for mixed use in this area. And that seems to me to be a door we should not close.
Okay, to get past it, this is the land use plan. We need to know how much and how to change the charts so we know how much to increase the population.
Well, then all the more reason we shouldn't be voting on this tonight.
We're not voting. We're just gonna getting the concerns. Okay,
Well, we're going to vote at the end, I hope.
Can I have a comment, please, on this Home Depot, Barron Cameron commercial area?
yes.
There has to be some commercial area that is devoid of residential, because people are sleeping when these big box places are having deliveries. It's noisy, it's ugly, it changes constantly. There's no way to provide a beautiful, serene residential component in this particular area. Look at the map. It's tiny compared to all of Reston. Every other commercial area is mixed use. This idea that we have to have some huge justification for having one commercial area that doesn't have residential, to me, defies common sense. We need to have this kind of freedom to have a boisterous, dirty, ugly commercial area such as Home Depot. If we didn't have Home Depot in Reston, I don't know what we would do. So
Well,
that's
I also think you need to just consider the people who own that property now. If we all of a sudden change it where they can't do mixed use, that's not fair to those guys who own it now.
Did they buy it as mixed use?
They probably bought it with the understanding that it could be.
Was it in the plan as mixed use before when they bought it?
Mike, what you said was not that it was mixed use. You said, what you read said that the plan said that they knew at some point maybe it might be something that
Yes,
might be
yeah.
considered. That
Exactly.
is not a granting of mixed use.
No, but it allows the guy to at least apply for it if he can present.
Anyone can apply for it. Anyone can come with
You
something.
can apply.
Yeah, this is not, by not including that language, it is not cutting it off. It's just that's not necessary language unless we are actually planning for it as
Well,
commissioner.
then we'd have to
How
take,
much
then
do
we'd
you
have to,
want and where do you want it?
then they would have to take, you'd have to take out the last sentence in this recommendation that says no residential use is planned for this site.
It's
If
planned
anybody
for
could,
this site, unless somebody suggests how much should go on this site, but as of yet, no one has suggested an amount.
It is not planned.
well, it's not, I don't think it's fair to say to me, okay, if you want to put your comment back in, give us the calculations. That's just not right.
That's
just not
fine.
right.
Give your number. How many houses do you want there?
500.
Look, again, it
We're
comes
gonna
down
play
to
this game.
the
We're gonna play
community
this
that we
game.
live
I can
in.
play with
We
you.
need to have certain things in our community, and commercial space like Home Depot is an important part of that. And if you replace that with housing, again, you're telling everyone in Reston gets in a car and drives 15 or 20 miles to find these stores. And that's not the lifestyle that we want or need. And it would be crazy to get rid of the remaining commercial area that we have.
Dennis, I completely agree with you. Mike has suggested a number, 500. Let's vote on it. I agree with Dennis.
Well, wait a minute. Hold it. Could I comment? This is a totally unfair procedure. The idea that somebody raises a question about deletion and suddenly the burden is on him to plan a whole new development for an area, and all he's saying is leave the language as it was. I mean, it is not a fair way of proceeding. And I expect to hear some of that coming forward when we get to issues that I raise.
Well,
That's I would say that
we do need to come to the end, and we do need to resolve that. If we're going to add housing, we do need to know how much so we can build those charts a little higher. If that's what the group wants to do, that's what we'll do. Otherwise, I guess the best thing to do is we'll come back with a better answer and which way go, I don't know, but so that's hanging out there unresolved.
But it
Let's all
was talked about.
Just
before.
the charts.
non-voting.
Yeah, but can I just say it was talked about before?
Your hand up.
And Michelle, and I agree with Michelle, I don't know what she's about to say, but I don't know how many times you can go around the horn on this, and sorry, Michelle, if you want to continue.
All right, let's leave that unresolved and go to the next area.
Yeah,
Can
I see
can I
Jennifer
make
has
a,
it. Yeah,
can I make
Sure.
a comment related, because it
That's
does
okay.
relate to this section, but it relates to our commercial and industrial sections in general. One of the things that I studied a lot when I was looking at the land use section was how much industrial and commercial zoned parcels do we have in all of Reston? And what were the uses that were allowed on those types of zoning based on the new zoning ordinance? And what I found in general is that we do have, we had a lot of changes to areas where we're allowing more mixed use in the previous comp plan, not knowing where that mixed use was going to pop up and which developers were going to bring it. We're now at a different point in our land use planning in which we know and have had a lot of cases that have been rezoned. So we're back at a point where we were able to study the map from the perspective of where's the mixed use going in or where has it gone in, and what is left over that has not been rezoned to mixed use. And what I found is we have some limitations to the types of properties that some of our not developers, but our so I'll just give you an example. For example, schools cannot go in a mixed use environment. They have to be in an industrial zone. Or we have like the light use industrial properties that are mostly not in this Barron Cameron or Bowman Green area, but on the east side, north and south of the toll road. So we just lost Nova Labs. I know that you guys have probably seen articles related to that because they could only move into a industrial zoned lot. And I wasn't positive, and so I actually went to Jose, who came back, and Sinclair had provided us a letter kind of explaining how they are evaluating these uses. And so I just want to make the point that if we make everything mixed use and allow land developers to do that, we might be squeezing out some of the uses that can only go in commercial or industrial zoned properties. And we need to be very careful of the balance we play there.
Excuse me, this is Barbara. I don't have anything that
Yes.
has a hand, but I'm sorry to disagree, but that's not actually accurate. Schools can go, or public use that can go basically in any zoning district. And labs, depending upon what they are, can fit mostly into an office. So I think there may be some misunderstanding here.
Well, Barbara, I can send you the case that you guys wrote the letter on. It came from your team that said that the Nova Labs could only go on an I property, and that the school, which it's not a public school, they're private schools.
Okay, and private schools can go with special exceptions on all. It's an issue of maybe someone else who's on the call knows more about that letter than I do from the staff side. But
Okay.
schools can go pretty much anywhere with a special exception. So I don't want to belabor it, but I'm sorry.
I think we're getting off the topic again. We're talking about Home Depot
I
what
was
to do.
talking about the balance because this is, you know,
Yes.
a commercial area, and that we have to be careful of the balance that we play between commercial and non-commercial areas. And Barbara, I'd be
Home
happy to send the
Home
letter back.
Reston's principle is having a balance of office and so jobs and residences.
But Home Depot in the old plan is strictly retail on the land use. That's what it is. And so, and Bowman Green is actually mixed use. So, not sure.
So
we go to
John,
all that. But we've got the issue are there other issues in these two areas, Bowman Green and Home Depot area? Let's move on to the village centers. I'm sorry, this sounds like we're
That's
moving
good.
on. We
No,
are
this is-
moving on.
It's progress.
We got the issues, we have it.
right.
Are there issues with the village centers?
I have a couple concerns. Three.
Yes.
In the section called Transition to Existing Uses on page 51, I submitted a comment and one half of my comment was based on a totally terrible misreading of the text. So I dropped that. But the last bullet in that section says maintain the boundaries of village centers unless expanded boundaries are essential to the successful redevelopment of any particular village center.
What page is that again, John?
That's page, I'm sorry, if I said 21, it's 51.
Is that, that's not referring to Lake Ann, is it?
No, that's not part of Lake Ann.
It's the other one. And your thought is that's wrong language.
That is very strong language, which means that the surrounding neighborhoods could be sacrificed to expansion of the village center. So I just find that strong language.
I think you're right. If that's what it says, that you're right. We are limiting any future development to the commercial portion. And I don't know if everybody missed this, but we've had this comment before. There won't be residential permitted in the commercial area unless there's a comp plan change. There's a lot of debate around that in the last plan, but that's the language that came out of the staff the last time. It was changed by the planning commission to let them go ahead. But so that's what we ended up. The redevelopment is in the commercial area only. Maybe we've made a mistake and haven't said that right. And any residential would have to come later. And hopefully Maura likes that.
Yeah. So
yes, I remember that being removed. Thank you.
the second concern is the recommendation for each village center, again on page 51. And it begins with the sentence, the village centers in Reston must serve as the focal point of activity for the surrounding neighborhoods. I think must is a very strong word. I think can is more accurate. And I think especially in the arrangements of our modern social lives, individuals and even neighborhoods have many focuses. So to say that the village centers must serve as the focus, I think is a bit much.
Yeah, that's probably Robert Simon leaping out.
Yeah.
So I guess we could fix that.
Well, I'm tossing them out my concerns. The third thing is again on page 51 at the bottom of the Hunter Woods Village Center. So all of the village center treatments are much longer than they were in the 2014-15 plan. But this one ends with a statement for Hunter Woods specifically. The existing residential areas in the village center located adjacent to the non-residential area must remain unchanged. That is a protection which is not found as strong in the section on South Lakes, and it's not found at all in North Point. So there's a differential protection there, so I guess the idea would be that if the current existing residential areas in the village center at Hunter's Woods needed to be redeveloped because they were so old and decrepit, then we would need a comprehensive plan change. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
it would be for density, probably.
Yeah, okay, and I guess that is satisfactory. I just note that a protection is given to Hunter Woods, which is not given as strongly to South Lakes and not at all to North Point.
There are
This
more
is our
residents in Hunter's Woods, though.
Say that again?
There are more residences in Hunter's Woods, more places to live right around there.
Yeah, there's affordable housing there too. This was part of our whole affordable housing. And maybe had a little bit too much zest there.
Okay. Anyway, I needn't press the point. You asked if there were questions. Those are my questions.
We did get your comments, John. Thank you so much for sending those. We appreciate it.
Yes. Yes, Bill.
Just a couple questions. One, Lake Ann, am I correct that no changes have been made to it? Because
right.
An awful lot of work went into it, and
unless John Carter made
people want to reread.
Wait, one change was made, and that was to the Lake Ann Fellowship House, which had a big paragraph that, this might happen. Well, it has happened. So that was updated. That's the only issue.
Okay.
Thank you, Tammy.
Fine. I just didn't want to have to read it again.
John, Bill Mayland, I believe there was an error on the full consolidation option for Lake Ann's A and D is removed, and I assume that was unintentional. There's a redevelopment option for each A and D, but there's a full consolidation option if you do A and D together, and that's not in the version that was sent out.
I think we fixed that, but if not, my last comment was going to be, I hope Bill Malin will help us make sure those comments are right. Yeah. But we didn't mean to make those changes except what Tammy was talking about. Did you see that in this version?
Yeah, I mean, so many people.
Bill Malin,
I went through it very quickly.
Oh, that one.
Okay, well, we'll take another look at that. I think we put all that language back about consolidation. I know you've told us that before, and so the attempt was to put it back.
There's a redevelopment option for each land unit and a full consolidation option for when you do A and D together, which was the last approval. The full consolidation options appears to have been dropped off. At least the version I was looking at today.
We'll look at that.
Yeah, the attempt, Bill, was to not change any of that. That may have just, been an editorial.
I think it's on the screen right now under area-wide recommendations. The last part of that first paragraph talks about consolidation.
Yeah, I was seeing that too.
So is that the right language? So I guess it does offer consolidation of that. Take a look at it, Bill, in more detail. If it's not what the past plan did, then I think we put it in and taken it out and put it in, and then last week we meant to put it in. So I hope it's right.
Yeah, I think there was a strong view to keep it in just as it was, except for the issue that Tammy meant. So it's just in my mind an error that, an editing error that Bill's picked up.
Yeah, I'm not sure we have it wrong. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
but
Bill, you may want to look at it too, just to.
The version I have was sent to me was not this one. So it was the one that was just released out, but it was like a red line version. So I don't have
several versions.
So I don't know. Again, I may have an slightly older version, but the copy I looked at did not have the full consolidation option.
Yeah, if you can see the full consolidations, area-wide recommendations paragraph, last sentence.
And if you scroll down, I think you'll find the full consolidation paragraphs, I think. Yeah, parcel consolidation, and then the coordinated development plan. I think that was a concern last time, but take a look at it, Bill. I'm not trying to talk you out of something. Anything else on the village centers? So you get the distinction, Lake Ann is staying the way it is. And the other village centers, what was different from last time, it was unclear to some anyway, of where the redevelopment was to occur. Some thought it was in the residential and the non-residential. Although I think the intent, even last time, was just to limit that to the non-residential area if there is any new development. And that the residential development is part of our preservation of existing affordable housing tactic is really what it is. So is there any concern about that? And I get what John Mooney is saying, and we'll look at the text about that. Does that match the gist of what everybody's looking for? Okay,
Could I
let's
ask
move
a-
on to the big one. Yes, go
Could I,
ahead,
no,
Bill.
John, could I ask a question?
Sure.
And that is simply you putting in 0.25, which I think is what's in the plan now. Are any
Yes.
of the village centers at that, above that, close to it? Just where
We've
are
checked
they
them
at
as
the
best
moment?
we could, and all of them seem to be slightly below. It's very difficult to get above 0.25 when you have a surface parking situation. So, yeah, as far as I know, there's no down
So-
planning in the village centers. And there's a little bit of room if someone wants to put a kitchen addition or maybe even there's a room for another store, maybe. But basically what you see
Okay,
is what
so-
you
so
get.
let me- I don't know that it's necessary to make a change here, but I would make two comments on that. One is, if they're virtually there now, then you're essentially freezing them, and the parking lots will simply stay surface parking lots, which is where they've been for a long time, and maybe they'll stay for a while. But to do anything that would try to achieve the community gathering goals that are described in the intro to the village centers, they're going to have to be more density, and probably I don't know whether 20 dwelling units per acre is a good number for that, but it's going to take some money to improve them. Having said that,
Yeah, I agree.
You
And
have to put in an application if they want a special exception or whatever.
We just thought this was not the time to
That's fine. I just
request
understand.
Great. And so that's why the notion of a comp plan amendment or a small area plan would be the best way, I think, to handle this. But we have put the numbers in the plan, so there's transparency and sort of at least one version of where it could be. Otherwise, you can't calculate the schools and the transportation and all the public facilities if we don't put something in there. It's just you're going to have to work for it to get there. And we've been back and forth on that. Like I said, I think the staff, that's where the staff was originally. I think the planning commission for some reason thought it should go. Maybe they were influenced by Bob Simon. I don't know what happened at the time. So we're kind of going back to the original staff intent, I think, on the village centers. Okay.
John, this is David Gill. Just how this 20 per acre is calculated is a little unclear to me. Is it across the entire 34 acres or just?
Yes.
Okay.
No, it's across the non-residential area.
Okay. Okay, so that when you're saying maximum future residential density, that is applying just to the what is called the non-residential area.
Right.
Okay.
Have that clear perhaps the last time. So clearing that up is important.
Okay, because the way I'm reading this sentence, it implies that the 0.25 uses that are planned there are those retail and institutional uses. And then it says just this maximum future residential density 20 per acre. I just think we need clarification for what that. It says in addition, just that it applies to the non-residential.
Oh, I see.
Portion.
Okay.
Where you're drawing that 20 from, because if you do the math over and I guess Bill Malin, do we know how the math is working here in the right way? Because when you look at the 16 acres of residential at 20 to the acre, that's only like 300 something units. That's basically the fellowship house. But there's definitely more residential out there than just the fellowship house. And I just want to understand, make sure that
We
that
looked,
math is right.
we looked at Lake Ann. The highest area in Lake Ann is 16. There's a
I
lot
meant
of
Hunter's
12s
Woods
there.
fellowship house, excuse me.
Yeah.
Just
Okay, we
a
can look
question.
at that. But yeah, the calculations, both FAR and residential units per acre are on the non-residential area.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so shall we move up to the TSAs?
Hey, John, this is Looney. Two
Yes,
quick
Mark.
comments and one question on this. So comments just to build on what David was saying earlier, there's slightly different language used in each of the village centers about the residential option on the non-residential portions of the village centers. I don't know whether it makes sense to make that language uniform so that you're eliminating the potential for either misinterpretation or misapplication of that language, but it reads differently in each of the different village centers when I think the intent was really to make it more uniform in terms of what you could do on the non-residential portion. So you might want to look at that as kind of a cleanup item.
Yeah, I
The
think you're
second,
right.
the second one, and I know it's cathartic to some on the call, but the discussion of Tall Oaks and where it is and what it is today, I don't know whether that's gratuitous at this point, and should we just take it out entirely and just eliminate the reference to it altogether? I'll just point it out that that's the way it read to me when I looked at it. The third piece, and this is the question, is on Lake Ann. Did you guys discuss at all sort of the current status of Lake Ann relative to the study that the county did about the infrastructure improvements that are needed, and how do you fix those problems, and whether the current plan language is a help or a hindrance to that conversation? Did you guys get into that level of detail at all, or was
We
it
didn't
just
get
sort
into
of
that
a
at all. We didn't
okay?
get into that.
No.
Yeah,
Mm-mm.
that's a pretty new,
New development.
yeah. I'm not
Yeah,
sure we would be very intelligent on what we would do, but we could take a look at the language and maybe the staff could help us
well,
look at
I
that.
think this is the question, and maybe this is a broader conversation for this and potentially other sites, is like, given that we haven't really dived into the details of some of these thornier issues, whether it's the golf courses or Lake Ann or other areas in the plan, in terms of how do you fix some of the problems or challenges that you have, or how do you figure out what you might do differently in the future. Is there I'm assuming that some sort of SSPA or board initiated plan amendment in the future, should something materialize there, would be the vehicle for doing this. I just wanted to make sure that we didn't blow past this without at least acknowledging that what was put into the plan 15 years ago for Lake Ann may have, I'll say that the events in the interim may change how that plan language ought to be looked at in the future. And so maybe there's just a further conversation that needs to happen later about whether that plan language remains relevant or appropriate versus trying to sort it out now.
They're
We
already
could,
planning on revitalization, raising funds. The people who live at Lake Ann are raising funds. They have a complete plan and working with the county in order to revitalize Lake Ann and some of the deteriorating structures. So that is going on as we speak.
well, maybe we could work with staff to see what they think. The staff may be a little more up on it than we are. I don't know.
Yeah, let me
I'm
just
not-
jump in,
I'm
Mark.
gonna dodge this.
Yeah, Mark, I appreciate your comments, and Jan, I appreciate yours too, but I think we're probably a little too soon on Lake Ann to know if the current comp plan is adequate. So that may have to come back later, but I do appreciate you pointing that out, Mark.
Okay, let's go to the
John?
TSAs. Unless Jan has do you have something on the village centers, Jan?
no, except for I have to strongly suggest that all of these village centers that we have now have been drastically changed. And I don't see common language being able to encompass what we are left with at this point. Hunters Woods, South Lakes, they're all very different from when they started out.
Yeah. They're doing amazingly well, and maybe Mark can help us on this. I don't think any of them are contemplating major changes. I think they're primarily trying to hold on to what they have, particularly the grocery stores in those village centers. And we'll see what happens in the next 5 years when things like Wegmans and others open up.
And that was the other thing. I may have misunderstood, but I thought we were just going to table the village centers for now and look at it again in the 5 years.
Well, that's pretty much what we've done. That's pretty much what we've done. These are not redevelopment areas that we've contemplated, and we have a few numbers in the chart, so we know what within reason what they could be, but we haven't gone much beyond that. Okay, should we start with Herndon Station?
I know, Mark Malcolm, you had a comment about the Herndon Station, did you not?
Yes, actually, I have just a few, and I apologize. I have been away quite a bit more recently, and so I hadn't gotten comments to you. So bear with me for just a moment. Start with page 45. On this, it's a matter, I'm mixing between a couple of substances, one very much what some other people that I work with would consider critical, and then there's a couple administrative. Okay, page 45, the Herndon Monroe Station TOD district. First sentence is great. The thing is then the first subparagraph, Herndon Monroe Station Transit Station mixed use. The first paragraph really belongs above that because it's describing the TOD district, and this is describing the sub-district.
Jose, can you put that up, please, so we can see what he's talking about? Thank you.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the page.
What page did you say?
Yeah.
45.
It's page 45 in what
45,
was
thank
put out for this meeting.
45. Uh-oh. Maybe on the wrong page 45.
Okay, if you look to Herndon Monroe, this is the one with edits.
Oh, the one with edits.
So the red line.
I'm looking at the clear version here.
My apologies.
Yeah, Jose, leave the clear one up, but that's it, isn't it?
Yeah, this is the clean one. Yeah.
Okay, getting to it.
Yeah, can you find it using this?
I'm working to see it very clearly. Okay, with this, let me move for the benefit of all. Go up just a second. Keep going up to the beginning, right there. Beginning of Herndon Station. Okay, where you are with the cursor, go up one paragraph. That sentence right there belongs in the prior paragraph because it is describing the entire TOD, not the sub-district itself. Herndon Station is mixed use sub-district. Okay.
Is this page 45? What page is this?
42.
You're right there.
42.
42.
Okay.
Okay, the TOD has two sub-districts. A transit station, you call it a mixed-use sub-district. Before
Yes,
it
and
been
the
just
75,
simply
25.
the 50-50.
All right, let's move that up. And I see we have Woodland Park in there.
Yes, that's the entire TOD sub-district, but you split it into two parts. The sub-district that is the 50-50 and the sub-district that is 75-25.
I
This,
got it.
this
Okay, we'll move
description
it up.
is of the entire TOD.
Yeah. We'll move
So
it
it
up.
belongs above.
Yeah.
Agreed?
Yeah.
Okay. That I consider a substantive comment. Yeah, in the next paragraph, let's see, the third paragraph down. The one that has the reference about polo fields.
Which one are we talking about, Mark? Are we on?
We're in the Herndon
You went
TSA
past.
only.
There it
I
is.
know that, but I'm
It's
on
in the second
42.
paragraph under
It's in the
50.
second paragraph.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, this is a critical comment. This sentence is absolutely essential here, but it actually also needs to be repeated with the section that deals with the 1.5 bar. If that is below the one, because there's a concern from a number of my neighbors dealing with the potential of higher rises on the T-Mobile property.
Yeah.
And that's why it really needs to be, for what was the earlier version, walking it down into the 75-25, it can be the next to last sentence dealing with that. Let's get it there. Yeah.
Okay. That can be
You'll
done.
see
I think
right
that
there,
sentence is from
cursor,
you. I think
before the last sentence, ground level retail. That
Yes.
sentence needs to be added there.
Okay.
That will eliminate a lot of headache that I have with my neighbors of concern of building height. They're still concerned with building height, but it places a constraint on them that you build lower buildings toward Sunrise Valley and allow higher toward the toll road. That's the most critical comment that I have. Okay. An observation in this excellent work done by Lynn, you, everybody. There are 266 musts in this chapter. There happens to be one must that goes against the covenant deed regarding the wetland.
Okay, where is that?
Okay, we have to go back up to, it was on original page 47, so it'd be on 42 or 43 when it makes a must preserve wetland or something of that nature. I gotta see if we'll work to it.
Mark Malcolm, am I going the right way or?
I'm trying to figure it out right now, getting there. Okay.
43.
You were real close. Stay put. Don't keep moving
I
around.
won't move. I won't move.
There it is. I see it. In the Herndon Transit Station mixed use, in that paragraph, halfway down towards the right.
Yep.
Must be
Okay.
preserved.
The must be preserved. This is a natural, not a natural wetland. This is a man-made wetland. And if you look at the Fairfax, the covenant deed that exists with this, you go to the very last one, it's possible that that wetland can be relocated anywhere within Region 1 of the Corps of Engineers. It's about 1,270 square miles.
So what would we say instead of must be preserved?
It's this one is a should. That leads to a question that I had very early on when we talked about this is privately held land. And we had originally at the beginning of this evening, what Lynn presented was a thing that there should be more public-private partnerships, not just with Fairfax County owned property, but also with private property. It was primarily for housing, but in this particular case, here's a what would be open space, quote, parkland that's private. How does private-public partnership or public-private partnership work? Here's an opportunity. But must is not the right word right now. This one technically is a should by the way that the deed reads on
Yeah.
this particular property.
Yep, I get that. Okay.
With that, I know that I have 2 attendees with this, and it's an opportunity here because they are directly with the Herndon TSA. I know that Lynn Brown, Rick Hamilton are here. I don't know if they have an issue. I think I've touched the key one that they had.
Okay.
Well, they were going to talk about the transportation issue. I thought Lynn was going to.
Well, with the transportation one, I'm sure that there's a little bit. Since the prior meeting we had, there's been another accident right in that area. People had to replace a large section of fence. Big deal. It was a big deal to them. And that particular family may participate with the HMTAC meeting this Wednesday.
So remember, the transportation is pulled out of the land use and put into its own chapter. So
Exactly.
yeah.
But with that, I don't know if they have another issue. I know
Okay.
that Lynn Brown didn't really, she had direct concern with FAR. That's the reason for seeing this additional sentence with the 75-25 is essential.
Okay. We might need to follow up to make sure we have this right before we put this to bed.
Roger, I appreciate you working with me earlier on this, John, long time ago and getting it caught up.
We can do it.
Well, thank you. Thank you for doing that. And I don't see any other hands across the attendees, but
Okay, let's go to the town center. Yes. Now, these are the FARs, I hope, that were in the last plan, so that there have been no changes to this. Not all of the areas in brown were described in very much detail. Not that there's a lot of detail in this plan, but they're at least touched in this plan. The fuchsia or whatever that color is unchanged. In fact, this might even be language out of the last plan, but if there are differences, let us know.
Yeah, so John, this is Mark. So on page 50, actually, wait a minute. I gotta get my numbers right, not 51. That's the village center. On the south side of the toll road,
Yes.
where the Howey Rise development is, the current plan has that entire purplish area that on the south side to the right-hand side. So basically from the transit station all the way down to Sunrise Valley as a 2 to 3 FAR. Whereas this plan, it's page 32 for the chart or for the graphic. And then that plan has that entire purplish area as being the 2.0 to 3.0.
Okay. I remember seeing this. That's what's in the old graphic, but I don't know what I'm not sure it's in the text before, but if what you say is right, then what you say is right. I don't.
Yeah, I looked at this.
Yeah.
I looked at this earlier tonight, and that's what as I was going through and comparing the current versus proposed, that's what I saw. And I'll give you the page reference to the current plan. Give me a second. So under the current plan, It's page 165 of Area 3, the 2018 version. The entire quadrant from, call it Edmund Halley, east to Reston Parkway, south to Sunrise Valley Drive, is all the transit station mixed use, which under the current plan has the 2.0 to 3.0 range.
Same. Okay. Well, we'll take a look at that if that's the case. I saw that before and I kind of wondered about that. And you can see the text doesn't say much about it at all. It just goes 1.5 to 3, I think, in the text. So
Well,
you're
no,
saying-
in the text, it makes the distinction between the transit station mixed use on the south side of the toll road, which has an intensity within a 2.0 to 3.0 range, a certain amount of 2.4 million square feet of existing and approved development, 3,000 residential units, et cetera. And then it says that the residential mixed use is planned for an intensity of up to 1.5. But the residential mixed use is the brownish, reddish color.
Right, right.
And that's on the west side of, kind of the southwest side of.
Yes. Could you go
Edmund
back to
Halley.
that page, Jose, so everybody can,
Yeah, I was
keep up
trying
to
to get
speed?
the plan up too, so.
Yeah, but
Or-
just the
The map
graph
is
that
on
shows
page
what Mark's
32.
talking about.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, there it is.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yes.
So that,
So you're saying
yeah.
that fuchsia color should be one,
Right, it shouldn't have split density. It should have
it
one,
should
the
be
two.
2.0 to 3 is what you're saying.
Correct, because
All right.
the graphic that's in the draft now, set aside whether that's the right call, but it's not clear from this, like where the dividing line is between the 2.0 to 3.0 and the 1.5 to 2.5.
Yeah, I wondered about this. So
We'll
you're
go
saying
back
that
and
really
look
should
at
say 2.0 to 3.0. Now, this is really a moot point because it's all approved except for the
Right.
Vernado, right? Mark?
No, there's one other, actually there's two sites that are still not yet approved. One is the two building complex, I'll call it on the east side of Edmund Halley, in between Halley Rise and Edmund
Yes.
Halley.
Yes, right.
And then on the upper left-hand side, on the,
Yes.
I'll call it
Next
the
to the
the northwest side next to the metro
Yeah.
station, that's not yet approved either.
And clearly that should have been 2.0 to 3.0. So
Right.
can you scroll down to the graphic so everybody can keep up with what we're talking about? I think there's a graphic in here of that. Yeah, there it is. The Halley Rise. Yeah.
Right.
So it's the gray buildings, actually. It's what it would be on the far side.
Well, I mean,
All right, Mark,
would-
if that's the case, then that's the case.
Yeah, just, I don't think that that's consistent is my point. So
I looked at that at the time and there is a graphic that shows it that way. I'm just not sure why that was around, but okay.
So
Anything
what are we
else,
gonna do, John?
What's that?
What are we gonna do, John?
We will, if you go back to the graphic, go back to the graphic of the, so you see the 1.5 to 2.5? That whole fuchsia area is supposed to be 2.0 to 3.0. And it's almost all approved except for the two areas that Mark talked about. One east of Halley Rise and one west of Halley Rise. Certainly the one west of Halley Rise next to the metro should be 2.0 to 3.0. That's what it says. It's that little area between Halley Rise and Edmund Halley Boulevard will now have.
and even the Halley Rise development is more intense than a 1.5 to 2.5.
Yes, pull back on Halley Rise or even to change the last plan. But there are graphics that I don't even know if they were in the plan. But this came from somewhere. But good, these are the things we want to catch.
So
Can I ask a
John,
question
John,
real
we're gonna
fast, though?
change.
Because, so you're saying, Mark, that you do not have an approved plan, but that in the current version of the current comp plan that's been enacted, you're saying that it has a higher FAR than what we're seeing on the screen here. Is that correct?
That's not quite correct because most of it is Halley Rise, which is already approved. It's a little corner of that area that's next to Edmund Halley, between Edmund Halley and Halley Rise is what's in question.
Well, except that it's the current comprehensive plan has that entire fuchsia purple. I'm colorblind. I don't know what it is, but whatever the non-red portion is, the current comprehensive plan has that entire area as a 2.0 to 3.0. The majority of that area is taken up by Halley Rise and Tishman Spires Reston crossing project, both of which are approved at a density that matches the current comprehensive plan recommendation of between a 2.0 and a 3.0. And then there are two sites, one closer to the metro, one farther from the metro, that don't yet, within that same purplish area, that don't yet have redevelopment zoning approvals on them. If this plan, or if this graphic were adopted and the corresponding language were adopted, then the portions of the existing Halley Rise development, along with the proposed or the unzoned area, that those plan recommendations would be different than what the current plan recommendations are. And so I'm just pointing out the inconsistency between what the current plan has, what the current zoning approvals are relative to this document, which would mean that portions of the existing and zoned Halley Rise development would be more intense than what this graphic shows, and we would be limiting the development potential of the unzoned properties relative to what their current comprehensive plan recommendations are.
But what I'm saying is, if it's different, it's different. But the substance of that is there virtually is no change in the density in that area. There would be a little bit on that south side that would be between 1.5 and 2.5. But given that Halley Rise is approved at its density, there'd be very, very little difference.
So
I'm not
Michelle
so
and I
easily
seem to
alone with
be.
thinking this.
How many more housing units are we talking about when we're looking at thinking about the graph? What is the change that Mark's suggesting? What does that change the
It might
number?
not be any change because 1.5 to 2.5 versus 2.0 to 3.0, you see that 2.5 is the upper end, and that certainly fits within the 2.0 to 3.0. Am I confusing things? I don't mean to.
So are we saying that?
Virtually no difference.
Are we gonna just change it all, the fuchsia to 2.0 to 3.0?
Yes, that's exactly what we would do. That's what we would do.
Yes.
With no change to the numbers.
Michelle, are you okay with that?
I don't think
Yeah.
it's, look, it's, if you're saying it's
Michelle,
going to make a change to the numbers, I don't think I have much more to add right now.
Yeah, let me just check. I see Bill Malin has his hand up. Bill, did you have some insight on this one, or did you have a question about something else?
No, I mean, Mark was correct about the current plan language. That area is 2 to 3. There's no 1.5 to 2.5 option.
Let's just change it. It's
The
a
other
half
thing,
AR on a very small parcel is the
I did
difference.
have a, sorry,
I think it's done. We can move on. It's done.
real
Yeah,
quick
go ahead.
on the Herndon Monroe, the graphic showed a 0.5 in the brown. That would be the base recommendation. That is not the overlay. The overlay is 1.5. So I don't know if that graphic was meant to not reflect the redevelopment overlay level or just the base level, but everything else has been reflected in the overlay.
Take that 0.5 off. If you notice, it wasn't in the PowerPoint. So sharp eye, Bill. Very good.
And the only other question I have based upon earned density is the low end of the plan makes a significant amount of difference. So my question is, should you not include a low end everywhere where you're making a recommendation? So at 1.5, are you just assuming that the low end is appropriate at 0.75, or should that be a different number? I'm not suggesting it, but 0.75 in some cases is basically existing entitlement for industrial area. So is it, I know the earned density says if it's not a range, it's half the max. Should you not put a range in everywhere you have an opportunity to avoid that situation of figuring half the max?
It may be, and I'm not trying to dodge that, but I am trying to dodge that. So you may have a point. So we're kind of staying good.
If I could
Good point, Bill, though. Yeah,
comment
Bill
still.
Penman, I saw his hand up too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there used to be a clear demarcation of 1 to 1.5 FAR in all the mixed residential mixed use areas. And this draft eliminated the 1 to 1.5, which concerns me because, as I said the last time, if you take away the bottom and you make it harder to move up with earned density, what you're going to end up with is de minimis residential additions to these areas and possibly commercial additions to these areas. And if you do that, then you're going to essentially undermine the potential strength of the TOD and the population support needed to support the residential to make full beneficial use of transit to support the jobs as well. So I think it's important that the numbers be at least 1 to 1.5 in those areas. And that would be true for all three of them. It's a problem I'm particularly sensitive to. Well, actually, if you look at all of them, these areas are really pretty skinny. They're bounded by Sunrise Valley to the south. And in the case of Wheelie, by the WNOD and public, well, parkland, whether it's golf course or Lake Fairfax Park. So there's a relatively little area that can be developed. And if you don't have a minimum of at least 1, it's going to undercut the whole balance of a TOD area.
Well, let's look at that. I couldn't find that.
Now,
I'm looking for a range on those. I didn't find it, but maybe it's there. Maybe Bill can help us on that too. Same thing's true throughout Reston, though. Many of the, well, a lot of the land uses do have ranges. The neighborhoods do have ranges.
Right.
Village centers don't for some reason, but okay, why don't we look at that?
John, Jennifer put something in the chat that I think is important for us to consider, and she asked, can we please bring back to the task force the amount this change has an effect on the unzoned parcels? This is the change from the 1.5 to 2.5 to 2.0 to 3.0.
Yeah, we can, but there's virtually no change. It just is teeny tiny. We can look at that.
Well,
Yeah, John, I can help you guys research that, but you know that I like my specifics.
Thank you, Jen.
All right.
Thank you, Jen.
I think that's good to keep track of it.
A couple other
Essence of what we're doing here is to be more precise.
Yeah, Bill
John Mooney.
Penman, did you still have him? Because John Mooney has his hand up too.
Yeah, a couple other things that I wanted to bring up here. In terms of the Town Center North area, I've said it before, but I do think the county properties should also have the potential for mixed-use residential to be included.
Not there yet.
I guess the county can decide that for itself.
Yeah, we haven't quite got there yet. Let's stick to the TSA, the TOD and the non-TOD.
Well, that's part of the TA.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Town Center North is in TOD.
Oh.
Yeah. So is there anything else in the TOD?
And then just one
area?
other, just very general comment. One other general comment on TODs. This applies to all the TOD areas, and that goes to the height of buildings.
Yes.
There seems to be some people have a view that it ought to be like a center tent pole, and everything declines from the middle. In fact, diversity of height along the toll road, principally along the toll road, is valuable. It's visually valuable, and you can't get in a situation where the guy to the east or west of you built one level, therefore you can't build higher. So just as long as it's thought of as in a general concept, that's fine. But if somebody thinks it's going to be a strict rule as to where height can go, I think that's disadvantageous, particularly if you want to open up the ground to plazas, parks, playgrounds, etc. You don't want to squash the density down too close to the ground level. So general comment. And it applies to all three areas.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Bill. Was that it for now?
I think we have John
yes.
Mooney. Okay.
So, but I have a comment on non-TOD. Is that okay?
We're not there yet. Not quite there yet.
Okay, good enough.
Hey, John, it's Looney one more time. Sorry to be a broken record.
No
So editorial comment on page 33, relative to the town center north, middle of the paragraph that talks about town center north mixed use. There's a sentence that says existing development includes several office parks at a certain density. Other uses include extended stay hotel, restaurants. But then later in this same section, you talk about how the Gateway project is underway that's adding substantially more office space that probably brings the FAR above the 0.3 to 0.8 that you talk about above. I just might suggest eliminating those two sentences altogether and just focus on the vision for the area as opposed to describing what's there, because that's constantly changing.
Okay, I'm just not sure where we're talking about. Do you see the screen? Is that?
Yeah, so middle paragraph under Town Center North Mixed District, the 3.0 to 4.0, about halfway down that paragraph, there's a sentence that says existing development includes several office parks at intensities from 0.3 to 0.8.
Uh-huh.
And then other uses include extended stay hotels, restaurants, all of which was true. But then the next paragraph talks about how the Gateway project is adding to that supply. I'm just thinking for editorial purposes, just to eliminate those two sentences. It doesn't change the recommendations, but I think that what the current FAR is in those areas or the current uses is a moving target.
Yes, and we have some new development there. Okay.
Not imperative, just an editorial suggestion.
Mark, are you also talking about the sentence that says future phase 2 of Gateway as part of the elimination? Just the sentence of
the sentence
sub-district
above that
one.
talks about existing development includes, and then the next sentence that says other uses include, all of which are or were true, but I think that's changing over time, and I just
So leave the sub-district sentence.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Does that work? Okay.
Could I ask
anything else?
Could I ask one other? Could I ask another question?
Sure, please.
Last time around, as you'll recall, a great deal of attention was paid to jobs housing balances, and even in an earlier draft, you had some numbers on it. That's apart from saying it'll improve the jobs housing balance, there is never anything said about what it is now, what the goal is. Was there a reason for that? That seemed to be very important.
Well, when I put that number in, that number was sort of an average of the commercial, because if you're going to do this right, you should take all the commercial uses by their square footage, retail, office, hotel, industrial. And I didn't really have them separated out that way. So I calculated an average of how many jobs that would produce. And of course, we know what the residential would produce. So I took it out because in fact, I think we got some comments on that was an average. I think John Mooney commented on that, and the accuracy is a little questionable. Maybe if we put approximately, but I will tell you that the balance it's getting heavy in the residential is where it's going. So. So, I mean, maybe we could put approximately or, the other, well, I don't know. I'm not sure what.
I think, John, approximately is good. You can't be precise on something like this. And I think the number you have in there.
I mean, if it's not something we're looking at, if there isn't a number you can come up with, that's fine. And it, the staff doesn't have one to throw in, and that's fine too. A lot of attention was paid to it before, but I don't know that there's a magic
it
number.
does talk about the desired mix.
Right.
I'll try to come up with another number, whether you want to put it into the plan or not, you can decide then when you see the number. But it has accuracy problems just because you don't really have the data the way it should be.
There's no way of making a perfect number for this.
Yeah, we don't have a perfect number.
You just don't. And
yeah,
whether it's suggestion or estimated.
Maybe the thing to do is that if you and the task force can't draft it, we'll just leave it as an open question. And if the staff can figure out a way to do it and plug some numbers in, fine.
Yeah.
But if you're not comfortable with your own numbers, then we don't need to add them.
It's not, the numbers have never been, precise numbers, Bill. They never have, many of them not been in here. So we're trying to put something in here that's, been looked at and so forth. I don't think there's any magic.
Let me take a stab at it. I would like to know myself, just as you, but there's a difficulty in calculating because different people calculate it different ways. I think what's been done at the past, it's been a square footage to square footage to commercial against square footage of residential. It's hard to get that number, but that is not jobs to housing. What you want to know is how many jobs in each household, and the commercial square footage, how many jobs would it generate? That's what you really want to know. And that's a difficult number to come up with, but I think we can come up with an approximation. And I think it's not a bad number to know. I just be careful of how we use that because we really can't get it accurate.
Is there any way to do a follow-on motion or put that on your working list of follow-on motions, Jose, that we would love to see more accurate data in the future tracked on that if we can't get it in this comp plan?
Yeah, it's a great idea, Jennifer.
Yeah, that is a good thought.
And are there any other questions on this section? I can't tell if any of the hands up were current or have been there a while.
So now let's go to the non-TOD. Is there a quick way we can do that? I don't want to miss anybody. Let's see if we can just go to that section.
I know John Mooney had something about the non-TODs.
Yeah, so let's just take them one at a time. The south of Dulles. Yeah, just take them this way. Just put that graphic up. So is there any concern about Reston Heights? Okay, how about Central Sunrise Valley? That's mostly GS, and there's, I believe, a data center in there. Okay, how about Town Center West, where the hospital is? That's the only place that we hinted at expansions for the hospital and the medical doctor's offices there. But we didn't make any changes other than that for that spot. And then Old Reston Avenue, that's pretty much gone at this point. Well, I guess there's some projects along Sunset Hills, but we pretty much left it the way it is. When you don't see an FAR, that means the existing plan is precedent. So you basically have what's there. How about Town Center? So whatever is approved is what you get. John, yeah.
I have a question. So a concern actually. So on page 36, at the end of the first paragraph there at the top, it reads, residential uses do not have a minimum density. And that is directly out of the 2000.
Maximum.
Yeah, maximum density. What did I say? Anyway.
Minimum.
Yeah, they don't have, I'm sorry, they don't have a maximum density. And that concerns me. It's right out of the 2014-15 plan. There were only 2 districts or sub-districts in the old plan that didn't have a maximum. And that was the urban core and also the West Fountain Drive. It had only a bottom.
Let's find that. Where is that here? Can we find it?
So I don't see anything in the current version that's being drafted here.
Oh, there it is. I see it. I see it. It's the last sentence in the first paragraph.
Exactly. Yeah, I was talking about. I think West Fountain Square is being handled in a much more detailed way, so I'm not going to dwell on that. But I'm concerned that you have this district that has no maximum, and so I don't know what it means to have that in zoning. Frankly, you don't have a maximum limit, and
You've got me. I don't mean to put Bill on the spot, but Bill, do you have any thoughts about that?
The urban core is zone PRC high density, which is a maximum of 50 dwelling units per acre. So there's a, I don't know what the current plan says offhand, but from a zoning side, we would have a maximum base at 50 use per acre.
Okay, maybe we should put that in there or nothing in there.
What do we think they're at right now? But what do we think they're at right now?
Yeah, that I don't know.
That's the question. So maybe we take that back as a question and analyze it.
But I think the sentence is wrong.
even though it repeats, I agree with you, John, but it repeats what was said in the 2014-15 plan.
Yeah. Well, we're a lot of years later, so.
Yeah.
We reserve the right to get smarter. Is that the adage? All right, so we'll take a look at that, but it's probably going to be 60 DUs per acre. It's probably, can't be above that. 50?
Bill said 50.
All right,
Did say 50.
all right. Okay, anything else, John? Is that somewhere else that you found that?
That's it.
Okay. What page is that?
That's page
36?
36.
Okay. All right. All right, what have we left off? Okay, we've left off the east and west. Let's see. Town center north. Okay.
John, sorry, this is David Gill. Going back to Reston Heights, we have a recommendation for the density for the approved new development, but the existing development in the original plan did have an FAR recommendation of 1.07, and it's not carried forward. It just says the existing development. Is that on purpose?
We probably didn't, some of these areas had base plans, which was pretty much the existing, and then redevelopment plans. And we kind of,
Well, I think it should retain the existing plan, which said 1.07, which is what's reflective of the approved development out there. But setting aside that, just the whole concept of getting rid of the base plan altogether is a pretty significant change in the DSA area. So a lot of these owners aren't looking to redevelop necessarily with TOD densities or with mixed use densities, you know, going from a data center, from office to a data center or office to a university use, for example, doesn't trigger the mixed use plan part of it, but you know, it has just different approach. And maybe this needs to be folded into the larger discussion about earned density, but is the base density intended then to be the low end of the range that we start with from the earned density approach, or I'm not quite understanding stripping out the base
Well,
plan.
this just says you can go as high as 2.8. It doesn't talk about any intermediate steps. So
Yeah,
you can do.
so understood, John. And I guess what I was saying is the larger idea of stripping out base plan recommendations throughout the land use chapters. And I'll table that for right now because that's, I think, a bigger discussion. But specifically here, the current plan says 1.07 says the Reston Square development is approved with a mixed-use development, including office, residential, hotel at 1.07, and it's largely been built as approved.
Are we sure?
I mean, I'm just looking at the plan online right now. That's all. So
I'm just wondering what's there. Probably not what's there.
I don't know.
Existing is not 1.07.
I would just hesitate to change the plan just to change the plan for the ones we're not trying to touch.
Well, the reason that I'm not trying to argue with you, I'm just saying we're not sure what the existing plan as it's built. The existing plan is approved at 2.8 FAR. Where we are today, whether it's 1.07 or 2.0 or 2.1, I don't really know what it is. So it was hard to put in the existing plan. That was why we just went to the high end.
Understood. So
we
I
start
guess
putting those numbers in, we could be creating more of a problem.
So, but what if you're an owner of, like, let's say those white small commercial office buildings, the Hartke building,
Yeah,
yes, right there.
Popeyes and
yeah, or Popeyes at the gas station. What would you do? What do you look to in this plan as your recommendation?
You can keep your Popeyes, or you can go up to 2.8 FAR. That's what it says.
All right, as long as that was the intent, because I don't think that was.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the intent. Because
So
we
John,
where we are. Maybe Bill has something.
The current plan has Reston Heights development at 2.8, Reston Square at 1.07. They're all in that plan area. So it's two different developments with two different FARs. So I'm not sure offhand if you just combined them for the larger FAR or if you kept them separate. It looks like you may have combined them.
Yeah, I think that's what we did.
So that would significantly increase the potential on Reston Square's site from
we could do that. So
1.07 to 2.8.
That is a big change.
1.07 is which one? The Reston Square?
Reston Square is existing 1.07. That's what the plan is for, and that was meant to reflect. It looks like the existing development approved.
And 2.8 is
the Reston Heights development, which includes Reston International.
So I think we need to go in and correct that.
And those are both
we
approved.
could spell that out separately for each one.
Yep.
Are we sure of the 1.07?
Yeah, I was just looking at the plan too, just like David was. I have it open. So
we can do that.
And I guess just making sure we have clean, consistent guidance for the owners. That's all I'm looking at for this part.
All right. Town Center Central.
If I could just make it.
Go back to the map because I'm forgetting where we are. So we did, so we're up to Town Center North. Have we covered everything else?
Is there any more town center urban core?
Is there anything else on Town Center North? Town Center North, includes Spectrum. Spectrum is the highest density area in Reston. It's a little over 4 FAR.
And that's zoned, right, John?
Right.
This is Michelle. I have one on Town Center North. Just if you can you bring up the map of Town Center North, because I think that'll help just visualize this a little bit. But we do have a current discrepancy, or it might be a discrepancy. I don't know. We've got to kind of figure this one out on what we are suggesting in health, and then what we have here. Right now, we've got 940 units, all it looks like going to blocks 2, 4, and 6. To highlight the issue we face is block 2 is an ER, and I believe it's block 6 is an assisted living facility. So if either we're getting rid of those two facilities right as we're about to double our population, or we're talking about putting 940 units just on block 4 alone. So this is just a discrepancy that we're going to have to figure out, because in health we have just voted on and suggested that we have a healthplex, and then we also have the idea of the continuum of care facility that would provide much needed affordable housing at all stages for Reston's senior population. So we've got a number of different, needs for this section over here. And just the way that it's presented right now in land use doesn't flow with everything else, or it doesn't appear to, unless you're intending to put 940 units on block 4 alone.
Well, there isn't, I don't think we have 940 units in here. What we have is 20 units per acre on the totality,
I
of
think
which
it
that
said it's in Lynn's presentation. It said 940 units for
says
a no.
approximately, yeah. It's not in the land use plan though. What it
Ah.
does say though is 20 units per acre on the total, and then allocating that to 2, 4, and 6.
Right,
That's
and
what
that's the
says.
problem there. So, just by forcing all of the residential there, that's what we're looking at. We're getting rid of an ER and an assisted living facility. So just want to make sure that everyone's aware of what's being suggested. And, I also want to highlight one point, by just, giving Inova 940 dwelling units without asking for much of anything in terms of community benefits. I think that we just all need to be aware of the fact, Inova is a tax exempt entity. And so we, as a community, have not benefited from taxes. But also we're really talking about giving away quite a bit without even asking for so much as a higher percentage of affordable dwelling units. So I think that there's a lot more thought that needs to go into this section, and specifically what as a community we want. Do we want to have an ER as our population is set to double? Do we want to have, that assisted living facility? And, if Inova is about to make a significant amount of money and profit from this land, as a community, do we think that the community should also benefit from that? So that's what I've got.
Okay.
John, this is Mark. I think
along too far. All those uses are permitted. So the emergency room is permitted in this, the healthplex, or those items in the health chapter, that's all permitted. Now that may be a little too cryptic, and maybe you want to push it in a direction, but there's nothing in the plan that precludes those uses.
I guess where would the housing go?
Well, we haven't gotten to the layouts yet. We haven't gotten to the layouts yet, so we don't know.
But it says that the density, that residential density would be for blocks 2, 4, and 6. So the residential density would have to go in blocks 2, 4, or 6.
Yeah, or not.
Hey, John, I know that
yes, go ahead.
Either Tim Sampson or Dave Sittler, who represent Inova, I think are on the participant list. I don't know whether you want to ask them to weigh in on this or not.
Yeah, I was looking to see if a hand might go up, but I haven't seen one yet from either Tim or Dave. Actually, I don't know if folks remember how to do the hand. Click on participants, and then there's a little button that shows up. Let's go on and John Carter, why don't you see if there are any other questions from task force members, and then we can see if there are any attendees.
That's the last of the non-TOD areas in the town center. We have Wheelie to do yet. Anything else on this one, North Town Center, or anything else in the town center area?
It looks like Dave Sittler did just raise his hand.
Yeah. Okay, Dave did raise his hand. So Dave.
Okay.
And then we have a few task force members with hands up too. I'm not sure. But Dave, go right ahead, Dave.
Yeah, either Tim Sampson or I should respond here. So with the density, the 20 dwelling units per acre does come out to about 940 if they're all in ANOVA. Doesn't mean that the uses that are there will remain in long term. For example, the Sunrise, who knows when that will, it could be 30 years from now that the Sunrise doesn't want to be there anymore, and you can put units on it. For example, block 2, where the ER is, we've always looked at a proposal that if an ER is possible, it might go on the first floor of block 4, freeing up block 2 for residential. So I don't, 940 units and healthcare uses can coexist on the blocks 2, 4, and 6. Previously, it was my understanding that there wasn't any intensity, that means non-residential, on those blocks. And we had asked earlier, but I have not seen the plan language since probably this summer. So we don't even know whether there's allowable on 2, 4, and 6 for non-residential for those uses that Michelle's looking for in the healthcare section.
I thought we had put, we may have used the word ancillary, but I'm not sure whether this version has that. I know we debated this back and forth. Do we know?
I think it did. If it's missing, it does have ancillary on it, and so that can be provided, but we'll have to look at the words.
We had asked for about 100,000 feet for non-residential uses, including retail and healthcare uses, so that we can create some sort of mixed-use development with the residential and the non-residential coexisting.
I personally don't.
Got that, John?
I have that. I personally don't have any problem. It may even be in here. I don't think the 100,000 is in here, but we can look at that.
Yeah, Dave, it was in here. So if we've accidentally edited it, we can deal with that.
And that's a help to what Michelle was talking about.
I also see Tim Sampson has his hand up. Tim, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, no, I think Dave covered it. Thank you, Walter. I was just going to say, I mean, I think, as you know, from the beginning of ANOVA's vision for this, it was not to say that the medical would go away, but had always, as Dave pointed out, had the ability to include it with the residential. Right now, by way of as an example, right, we're in the process of developing a healthplex in a condominium regime with an apartment building in the city of Alexandria. So it's not something unknown to us at all.
Good.
Has it ever been done with an ER?
There'll be an ER in this
The ER
in this healthplex that we're talking about. Yeah. No, I'm not. We've been at this a long time, so I'm not promising anything here. But we don't see we see the conflict, I think, that Michelle is pointing out in the way the two sections are drafted right now, but we figured that would be an easy thing to reconcile when we had a chance to kind of weigh into it as they move forward from the task force.
Okay, let's see
what
we can
graphic.
do with that.
I think
Also note that the graphic is incorrect, John.
What?
I also note that the graphic is incorrect.
It is?
There's a road through block 2 that has been shown that doesn't work.
Yeah, I thought that was an option, but you're saying you just want the.
Yeah, Dave, that came out of the DRB. So that was the graphic we had that had the concerns you pointed out. But
Yeah.
that is the latest graphic that
It's
was,
not the approved graphic out of the DRB. We'll send the approval graphic to
There you
Jose.
go.
we,
There
we
you go.
thought,
We'll get that
we thought we
incorporated.
we had that, but if we need to correct that, we can do it.
Thank you.
Just send it to us. Send it to Jose and he'll get it to us.
If I could jump in really fast, I think this is great. And if we can reconcile that, that's fabulous. I do want to reiterate my point, though, on the fact that for the residential that does go on these properties, I think as a community, we should expect significant community benefits from it, directly addressing health whenever possible, especially in the realm of affordable housing, and addressing that issue, which Innova's own health needs assessment has identified as the first the greatest issue for the area. So if we could also work with you on ensuring that the community really benefits from this, that would be fantastic.
You remember the 20 dwelling units per acre. I don't even know what the acreage is with precision. It's about 940, 944 or something. There are affordable housing units on top of that. So you can get a, what is it, 8 to 12% bonus on top of that.
That's
and
great.
even-
I'm
even
talking
higher.
outside of that. I think just as a general principle and for these specific parcels, we need to be looking outside of what is even in the ordinance for WDUs. And so again, I'm just going to say it again, Innova, I hope that you'll work with us to make sure that the whole community can really benefit from these.
We will certainly work with you and help the whole community benefit. I can't change the economics of developing affordable housing.
I think you
Okay.
have an opportunity to do more here.
Let's move on. We've got a whole nother area to take it. We have the largest area left to go, which is Wheelie. Is anybody have something else on the town center on any of the TOD or the non-TOD areas?
John, this is Bill Mann, just a quick question. Based on my understanding of earned density, would we assume that the high for town center north is 20 DUs per acre and the low is 10? And they have to earn from 10 to 20? Is that how you would interpret it?
Let's hold off on the earned density yet. We're not sure where we are yet, but yeah, that's initially was what it would be. Yeah.
Of course, that would address Michelle's concern too. But
Yes, it would. Yeah.
John Mooney has his hand up.
No,
John.
no. I failed to remove it. Sorry.
Well, let's move to Wheelie.
Just to say that last conversation worked out really well, so. We're making progress towards getting this done by 10 o'clock.
We're getting there, but there's two other items here on the agenda. Okay, Wheelie. So Mark or anyone else, do you have any questions about the FARs? Okay.
So
Yes.
this is Bill, and again, I think there needs to be a minimum of one. Beyond that, I mean, in the TOD areas, outside, I don't care. Beyond
mean the
that, am I
non- yeah.
correct
Yes.
that these
In the
maps
brown.
are exactly? They were-
Yeah.
Pardon?
These are exactly
Right.
what's in the old plan, I think.
That's fine. I assumed so, but I just wanted to be sure.
John, I thought I read the area on east of Wheelie, north of the toll road, had a plan of, I think that was 1.5 to 2.5, which is not the current plan. It should be 2 to 3. Maybe I read that wrong. So that's maybe just a double check. If there was not an intent to change it
Are you talking about in the brown or in the fuchsia?
in the purple.
Yeah, it is both sides. We could maybe move that number over to make it clear. But yeah, all the purple is 2.0 to 3.0 north of the toll road. We can fix that. You see how useful these maps are. I think they are very useful. Okay. So are there any changes? I know we've gotten calls from different people. Yes. Fire away.
Yeah, no, a question about the point just raised. The 2.0 to 3.0, that includes the area east of Wheelie,
Yes.
which was part of a consolidated development that included, that I went beyond the purple into the brown.
Brown,
And they may
yes.
have gotten density bonus for doing it consolidated. So is the 1.5 to 2.0 accurate for all of the
Yes, it
area
is.
east east of the purple, in fact?
Yes, it is accurate. They're actually below that. But
John, I need to Bill again. I need to double check, but I think the area east of the purple is just a 1.5. I didn't think it went up to the 2.5. And the area above it, we have a 1 FAR. I thought stayed at a 1.5 FAR. I'll double check the plan real quick, but I don't know that that graphic is correct.
well, let's check that. We want these right. I had a hard time finding the 1.0. That's the I-5, I think, which allows 1.5 with residential. So we put that's where the 1.0 comes from. I don't think it was designated in the old plan, but you know, I can be wrong. And it is kind of odd that there is a range in that other, in the 1.5 to 2.5. So let's check that, Bill. But it's mostly done, except for that there's an office building or two that's along Sunset Hills. So that area is pretty well developed at this point. Good catch.
Yeah, John.
So how about the areas west
Are
of
we
there?
talking-
So
Okay, west
we're talking
west
about
of there. Okay.
so Association Drive, and then we have. I'm not sure that goes all the way over to Plaza America. I'll see. Yes, it does. Oh no, it does not go over to Plaza America. It stops short of that.
So John, I just double checked the current plan, and the 1.0 FAR is 1.5.
Okay.
The 1.5 is still 1.5 to 2.5 is 1.5. All the purple above is 2 to 3. And on the south side, we have a 3 FAR or 3 point. I don't know if that's a 3. I can't see. It says 3 FAR, but that's wrong. That's an area that has 3 different plan ranges.
Yeah.
One's a 1 point, one's a I think 1.05, one's a 3.05, and one's a 3.55. So there's 3 very distinct plans in that area. It has a 3.0 FAR. 2 of them got developed as townhomes, but the 3.55 is still there as approved.
So that should be 3.55, you're saying?
Right, but it's in a smaller area than you reflected in your text.
Uh-huh.
The text that you did, you basically took all of the Roland Clark area and combined into one 3.55, whereas 3 separate plan FARs currently. And 2 of those areas got developed much lower than the plan was originally approved at. They got developed with townhomes.
I think originally it was all part of that conference center that was 3.55, I think.
But only the northern part of that conference center had the 3.55 designation because it had an approved site plan. The area to the southwest had a 3.05, southeast was like a 1 FAR.
Okay. All right. All right, well, why don't we make sure we've got the plans in sync here. And
Yeah.
that shouldn't change the
So
numbers.
I think that the 1 point on
Go ahead,
the
Bill.
area north of the toll road, the area north of the toll road to the west, I think it does go to Plaza America. Doesn't include Plaza America, which is a separate topic we can discuss now or later, but
I'll look at that. I believe that's in the non-TOD. But you see the road plot,
well, right
was that
now,
called? American Dreamway. See American Dreamway, how it comes in. Yeah. So it looks like it's non-TOD, but we can look at that.
American Dreamway comes into the middle of Plaza America. So
Yeah,
the
that's
brown
kind of
may come up to the edge of Plaza America is all I'm suggesting.
Yeah, I
And
think it
then-
does. Yeah.
And for Plaza America, which you may want to talk about later, but I'll just say now, I think it's important to give them a residential mixed use option for two reasons. One, to help, and maybe they already have it, and if
Yeah,
they do, say
they
so, but
already have
um,
They have.
if we're, it's not clear. What does it say? Do we know?
I think it says 75-25, but we can,
For Plaza America?
I believe so.
I don't think so.
That would be.
I think it, Bill, I think it did.
Yeah, it's in the brown, which is the 75.
Not, well, Plaza America, I don't think, I think it's just outside the brown. I think it'll be, let me just say.
You're right.
Whether it isn't, it should have an option for residential mixed-use development, because one of the things we want to accomplish is to have Reston Boulevard go into Plaza America, not have to put people out on Sunset Hills for a block to turn back in.
Right, so Reston
And
Station Boulevard.
likely the only way to get them to do that is to give them an economic option. So,
Yeah, let's look at that when we get there. I think we have it, but my memory is fading.
Bill, did you have anything more on this one?
I did. I have a question down on page 28.
Okay.
Wheelie east of the left-hand column, east of the TOD area. And it says the area is located from the quarter mile to the half mile. Existing development is encouraged to remain. That's if it's within the half mile, it's presumably encouraged to redevelop and has partially redeveloped. And then it says existing man-made and natural features in the vicinity of Sunrise Valley must. And I just, since I live there, near there, I don't know what features those are, because all I can think of are parking lots and buildings and roads.
Is this Association Drive? No, that's the one.
No, this is east of Wheelie, page 28, first full bullet.
Let's see, Reston Town Transit Station South Residential mix east of Wheelie. Oh, that's Campus Commons, to the east of Campus Commons is what that is. So we had a lot of discussion about that, remember?
Right.
With the parks, the linear park along.
No, not that I recall.
There's a pond.
You may have had them in your little meetings, but I don't recall it.
No, it's not in our little meetings. It's in the full task force.
Station, we did.
Yeah, it was a pond and there's, yeah. You understand what we're talking about?
Oh, there is a little pond next to you, one of the buildings, but
yeah.
Is that all people are talking about? Because the rest
well, I think there's
is basically parking lots. If it's not a building now, it's a parking lot. And there's not something worth preserving if you can put in residential mixed-use development. People who will use the subway.
Yeah. It's not all that high density, but we'll look at. We did quite a lot last time.
Michelle, was that you that was going to say something?
I'm going to jump in here. Where is all of the infrastructure supposed to go, Bill Penniman, for all these extra residences you want to put everywhere? This is bizarre. We right now are lacking park space. We can't get more roads. Our schools, we have to have 2 more schools, elementary schools. I don't understand the concept of packing in more people when already we have a dearth of required infrastructure and no place to put it. How do we serve the public and remain a desirable community without necessary infrastructure? You just have to come to a point where you say, let's try this for 5 years. Later, it's, you know, we're in a really bizarre economic. I know what you're saying. If people build something of lower density, it'll be 50 to 100 years before we change it. But we started out at 105,000 people. We have 66,000 now. That's almost doubling. Now we're up to between 110 and 120 without your added residences at God knows Home Depot and this eastern area, which is office and industrial. We need those uses also. We don't need to pack residential everywhere. And please don't patronize me, Bill. I've heard your spiel. I'm just saying.
Let's look at what the text actually says. So the section. Wait. Let me give it a try.
This is inside the TOD area. This is inside the TOD area.
Make it.
Okay, but before we pull it, let's
included
the numbers. Well, let's look at the text and what it says. It says 1.5 FAR, so it's not. We can't go up on that. And then it has the mix, and then it's yeah, and then it says opportunities to cluster amenity in nodes along existing natural and stormwater facilities must be used to form a connected amenity. This is where the cycle track is. So maybe it's a little stronger than you prefer, but it seems like it keeps the density and it works off some of the natural features, which are pretty small. It doesn't sound too bad when you look at the language the way it is. What would you do, Bill? Not to put you on spot. I don't mean to do that really, but actually I do. So what do you think?
To the extent to the extent this appears to be discouraging in development inside the TOD, then I'm objecting. If you're saying, no, that's not a problem, the parking lots can be redeveloped and with infill development up to the provided FAR, that's fine. I just thought that there was something written here that was very unusual compared to what I'd seen elsewhere.
It's
very similar. Down planning.
No, that we're not down.
We're not down planning. We are clarifying language.
Bill. This is the existing plan with minor adjustments. And
well, it's very similar to Association Drive. So you get
and
a
more
certain,
than what's currently on these parcels.
Yes. So I don't know. I thought it was all right, but I'm not trying to talk you out of your comment, Bill, but you've got the density and you've got the mix. And then it says use the existing opportunities to cluster amenities in nodes along existing natural and stormwater. It's not too draconian, I guess.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, let's
as
move
long
on.
As it's not trying to.
No, it's not trying to change what was there before. It does talk more about those natural amenities. And we've been having trouble with Sunrise Valley Drive and sort of the look of it. And yes, we are trying to emphasize the trees and some of those natural features in both Association Drive. What's that?
That area does have trees, Bill. It's got the pond and the fountain, and it has a lot of trees over that area. So it's about tree save.
It has a lot of parking lot too. And it also has a lot of runoff from those parking lots. That's one of the big runoff areas that's a problem for RA. So,
so we would love for them to redevelop.
That situation would be helpful.
Okay.
So,
I think
John, we got it's 9:46. How much more do we have on?
We're almost there.
Okay.
Roland Clark is the next column. There's the 3 point.
Vote.
So Mark has some suggestions and we'll make those changes. What's next, Lynn?
I also think Bill Teneman had some recommendations for that Roland Clark area as well. So we need to really kind of parcel that out. So yeah, thank you, Bill. Thank you.
So scroll just a little bit so we see all of the Roland Clark.
John, this is David Gill. I do want to jump to, I thought we were going to talk about Association Drive. Do you want to talk about it now or in the future?
Let's do Roland Clark and then we'll come back to Association Drive. So, Mark is saying that the 3.55 really only applies to the northern portion of that, and we can fix that.
What page are we on?
We're on page 28, is it?
28, yeah, it's right there.
I think Bill was actually the one who was saying that area is a little bit split, but
Yeah, Bill Nayland. Yeah, there's 3.55, 3.05, and then the southeast area is 1.0. Right, Bill?
That's what the current plan is, but as you know, 2 of those sites got redeveloped with townhomes, so it's likely that wouldn't change, so it may be worth reflecting existing development. But the 3.55 is the northern portion of the site.
Yeah.
and I'm happy to talk with Bill offline about that as well.
Okay. Let's get it right.
Yeah.
I think the text isn't really wrong. It just doesn't reflect everything that's there. All right, well, let's go back to Association Drive. So David, did you have something there?
Yeah. Sort of talk about the decision to strip out the base option, the base plan, because it talks about 30 dwelling units per acre as the base plan. And these are owners that have bought these properties and have been paying the additional tax and had some assumptions for residential and or mixed use based on those plans. And introducing that uncertainty does change that calculus for them. And to not say that there's at least a significant impediment to how they may have thought about using their property, I think is not entirely accurate.
I don't have any problem putting that back in. It's just substantially less than the FAR that's proposed. But if you want that,
I think it's an option. I think those owners would want that base option back in. I think a lot of the owners would want the base
And David,
option
this is
back.
without consolidating, right?
Correct. It's not without, it's without consolidating. It's called the base option.
well, it is consolidated, right? Association Drive is consolidated. No?
No, it is fractured ownership, to be frank.
I see. I see. Well, I mean, we can, it's a down planning, but we can do that.
Something good to look at.
Yeah. All right.
And I hope you go the other way.
Well, that's what I thought too.
Yeah, and that's why we'll have to look at it.
Yeah. All right.
Someone help us understand because we've heard this multiple times outside of Association Drive. Why are we concerned about minimums? Because the current zoning isn't at the minimum that was in the last plan. We did make a decision to not put minimums in, so it does concern me to put them in some places and not others. And I'm just kind of trying to understand what the concern is.
Yeah, I'll just jump in. I think one of the concerns is without consolidation. Basically, if you leave some suburban office buildings there and suburban office parks, it's going to make it difficult for some of the properties around it and on the other side to be transit oriented. At least that's one concern that I've heard. I'm not saying it's a stopper, but that's one concern.
I'm with Michelle and Bill on this one. I don't know exactly what to do. If it helps, I guess it's all right. But it is kind of down planning. Is what it's.
I mean,
Well,
this is where I think it's important to have a minimum.
What's that? Important to have a minimum.
Yes, and I think the 1.0 is the right place to be.
Yeah. Well, 30 DUs per acre is about 0.4.
And just to be clear, it's not necessarily down planning. I mean, there's also the 0.35 base recommendation that's part of it. And a lot of these owners might want to look at uses that involve having to go through a zoning process for slightly different commercial use, whether it's data center or a university, for example, and may not want to implement the entire mixed use plan as part of that. That's why we've traditionally had that base option in the plan. If we're saying it's all or nothing, then yeah, that does inhibit their property values. And I think you got to look at, is the incentive high enough then to come into a mixed use process?
Yeah, it shouldn't be all or nothing. It should be, you've got a range of things that you can do, but let us think about that. I think this property and maybe the one before might be the ones that this might be useful. I don't think you want to do this in a lot of areas, and it wasn't in a lot of areas before, but let us think about that. You've given us a lot to think about, hopefully. Okay, let's keep going. I think what we have left.
Next is
are-
Reston East non-TOD district.
And what's the other one to the west is called, not Reston Heights, but
There's Michael Faraday, Lake Fairfax Business Center, and the eastern section between the toll road and the proposed extension of South
Sunset
Lakes
Hills.
Drive.
Sunset Hills. Let's do Sunset Hills first, because I think we can
Okay.
get that pretty easily. So there's your Plaza America, and that's where we want to look at what Bill is commenting about. I know we have that in here somewhere.
Yeah, I think Jen added that language to the chat window.
Yeah, it's in the
as well.
chat.
Thank you, Jen.
So Fannie Mae is pretty straightforward. It's the Plaza America. It says they retain their existing mixed use, land use and zoning. So what do you think, Bill?
It
Bill
depends on
Malin.
what it is. Okay.
Yeah, I don't really know what it is. This is one that I'm not sure of what it is.
I thought I looked it up at Plaza America. I think it's a 0.5 now. We could double check that.
Okay. So let me write that down. So Plaza America. No problem with Fannie Mae though, right? That's what it is today.
No, actually, that is incorrect.
It
The Fannie Mae has slightly different language in there where it says if you retain the existing office option, it's 0.62. If you implement a mixed use option, it's 0.5. So that keeping it at 0.62 is not correct according to the current plan. And that does make a difference. The current proposal they have is about a 0.5. And actually, if you keep it at a 0.5, you get more affordable dwelling units than if you keep it back at a 0.62.
Huh. I see. Does the 0.5 include the office?
Yeah, so the 0.5 would be inclusive office and a residential mix. If you keep
Okay.
if you keep the existing development, it's 0.62 in the plan, but it down plans if you add a residential option and replace one of the office buildings that's not been constructed.
This
Or
one's
down
pretty
plan,
far.
it changes the plan.
Okay. All right.
Bill, I'm sorry, you said Plaza America is 0.5?
I'm gonna double check it. I had looked it up earlier, but I can double
Thank you,
check that
sir.
real quick.
Thank you, sir.
So what are we going to do with this, John Carter?
Well, if it's truly 0.5, I guess we would just write it in. It says retain their existing mixed use, land use and zoning. And we can point 0.5 in there, make that clear.
I mean,
And
again,
then-
it's in process, so the mixed use is not approved yet, if I understand that correctly. They're in process, so the plan today is 0.62 office, 0.5 mixed use.
That's for Fannie Mae.
Correct, the Fannie Mae side.
Yeah. And we could add the 0.5 to Plaza America if that's what it is.
Yeah, Plaza America, I think is the Sunset Hills district, and it says is planned for mixed use up to 0.5.
Okay, we can do that.
So we're going to simply make whatever Bill goes back and double checks into the write-up here.
Yeah, it says the same thing. It says retaining their existing mixed use zoning.
Right.
We just put the 0.5 in. And then we didn't put the 0.5 into the Fannie Mae. I didn't really know that. Okay. So let's move to the more controversial side, I guess. So let's do
John,
south.
as you do that, it's 4 minutes till 10. I don't think we're going to get to anything else besides land use tonight. So how much longer, John, do you think you're going to need tonight to get all the feedback?
Got two sections. Let's see. I'll
Okay.
rely on the
Okay,
comments.
so I apologize to anybody that's been waiting here for housing or environment. But this is really important to get all this out on land use. So keep going, John.
Yeah. Okay, let's
If
do.
we could get through land use tonight, it helps a ton.
Yeah,
Get to a
east,
vote.
south of the toll road. So this is from the TOD area all the way to Hunter Mill Road. So if you could scroll up just a little bit. So I don't know if that's clear. So that's what we have. We've been back and forth on this one. Where are we?
I think we need to go to page 29, Jose. Sorry. Yeah.
So Michael
So this
Faraday.
is the Reston East subdistrict north of the toll road. Yeah.
Okay, we can do that first if you want. So that Michael Faraday area is the area immediately adjacent to midline or the midline development. So this is the area between where Sunrise South Lakes Drive comes over the toll road. So it finishes out that whole area. And so it gives us an opportunity to do residential there. So it's existing 0.4 mixed use now, a mixed industrial now, and you could go up to 1.0 with residential. This is the one place where we've upzoned. Well, there may be some other places, but this is a up planning part. So any questions about that? We've talked about this before. Okay, let's scroll down. So now we got the Lake Fairfax Business Center. So this is the one that there have been some industrial proposals in there. It's a declining area to a certain extent. There's a new motel going in there. There's offices and sort of semi-industrial areas. And we left that the way it is today. And there's some issue about how it rubs up against the large residential homes to the east of this.
I think that's called Equestrian Park, correct?
Equestrian Park,
Yes,
right.
the Equestrian Park area, right?
Yeah. So now if you look at the land use plan, it's that salmon color and it's got office and we're proposing to add, it's actually industrially zoned, industrial to it. So that's what the land use plan is proposing today. So that has the post office, it has some office buildings, it has a whole host of things. Okay, let's move down to then the south of the toll road. This is all the way. And so you see those buildings in the photograph. That's what the area looks like. And there are some bigger buildings in there. And so we just kept that the way it is now.
This is David Gill. I certainly understand the goals of leaving this alone. I'll just say a lot of those office buildings are going to be facing challenges in the next 10 years, as there's going to be a flight to the TSA areas, and how that suburban office works moving forward is going to be a challenge. I think if you look at the vacancy rates of those buildings, they're not great, and we can have that discussion down the road. I'm not going to fall my sword on it, but that issue is coming.
Yeah.
David, you were breaking up a lot.
I apologize. I guess what I'm saying is the vacancy rate for those office buildings is substantial for a lot of them. A lot of those tenants are either going to cheaper office further west, or they go to the TS areas where there's more amenities. These non-amenitized suburban office parks are going to be challenged, and there's going to be something we probably need to deal with, maybe not tonight or even with this plan amendment, but in the future, it's something to really think about how that office is going to work.
I think one of the problems with this area is we didn't have much outreach down there. And so I know the staff was warning us about sort of picking and choosing various sites. So there seemed to be a little bit of an outreach issue on those. Some of those buildings are pretty glorious. The ones in the photographs are pretty good and probably pretty good leasing. The ones closest to 100 Mill are bigger, and those are leased too. It's kind of the ones in between. That is it. Preston White is the circular road. Some of those areas where we've got some vacancies in there. There have been people in there wondering about residential, but without dealing with the whole area in a pretty massive outreach, at least I was reluctant, and Lynn too, probably to go farther. We did get a little pushback from Upper Lakes Drive and some of the residential there on that elementary school. So we left it the way it is. I do think we need, not every place can have Class A office buildings, and we've got so few of it left. We're just kind of hoping that something will gravitate in there without having to switch it all over to residential or try mixed use. Mixed use is going to be real difficult in there unless you consolidate some parcels. So I don't know.
Maybe healthcare facilities, John.
Yeah, healthcare facilities, as would be perfect for those kinds of things.
Repurpose existing buildings.
Okay. So that takes us all the way through the land use, and I'm not apologizing for how we started or how we're going through it. I don't know how we would get through it if we didn't do this way. I think we got the comments, and I'm sure the comments will keep going. Yeah.
John, there's one other thing. Mara's been very patient.
I've been waiting for a
Mara,
very long time.
sorry.
Your hands almost burned through my screen. So
Yes,
go ahead.
yes. I can't tell
How
you
would
how
you
I've
like?
been waiting.
It's okay, Mara. It's okay.
Gosh. Okay, I wanted to go to page 15.
Okay.
At the bottom of the page is 15. It's a map. Yep, that one. we got several questions. I wanted to ask county staff, do you see how there's a comparison in the dwelling units per acre between the county and then it says Reston land categories? See where the density of the county only goes up to 20 dwelling units an acre, but out in Reston it talks about 50 plus dwelling units an acre. Is that unique to Reston, or do you find that 50 plus dwelling units an acre in other parts of the county?
So the 50 plus dwellings per acre is related to two specific sites. One was Charter Oaks and the other one is the Harrison. And I'm not sure, I know the Harrison, how it's reflected is correct, although it's complicated in terms of how to describe that. I'm not sure if the Charter Oaks is a correct density on that map. I think it may be an error. I would say typically, what this is reflecting is the countywide plan, the countywide land use is for those areas not zoned PRC outside of the TSA. And that's a very small number of places on the map, except for some of the areas in Herndon, Monroe. The rest is the Reston plan, which is more reflective of the PRC density. Again, PRC maxed out at 50 DUs per acre. What's unique on the map is what they did in 2015. They were mapping individual tax maps versus development plans. And when you figure out density, you base it on the development plan, not the tax map. So that's why you have those two specific areas that's 50 plus. It's not unlimited. It's just reflecting the fact that the Harrison, I think, is that individual tax map is like 60 dwellings per acre, whereas the development plan is like 30 some. So it's how you want to map it. And Charter Oaks, I think, may be incorrect. I definitely don't think it's over 50. I'm not sure if it's under 20, but I know it's somewhere in that area.
Okay.
And Myra,
All
there
right.
are places around the county that are more than 50 dwellings.
I was just
So
curious.
Definitely. I don't know if they map it at 50 plus. They typically would map it as an FAR at that point, I would guess.
Okay, so maybe this will help. So Maura, if you look up in the northern portion, if you've got a sharp eye, there's sort of a yellow square there. Do you see that? Can you put your cursor on that, Lynn? Yeah, right there. That is not in the PRC, supposedly.
Oh, yeah, that's my neighborhood.
That's your neighborhood. Okay.
Yes, I know those people.
So it's
Yeah,
not
I
in the
know that's
PRC.
not part of Reston Association either.
So the legend in that one category refers to that. When it comes to the Harrison, we left the Harrison the way it was because it is what it is. Charter Oak, we suggested that you change the map and take that down to 13 per 20.
Yeah, I saw
13 to
that at the bottom.
I think that's what it is. So if you scroll up, you'll see a footnote. See that number 1 there?
Mm-hmm.
So it's the bottom of the map. Now, in the text, we explain all of these.
Yeah, that's my next question.
And you'll see that it says for the high density only in the transit corridor, not in the neighborhoods.
Can you go up to the chart on the previous page? That's my question. Because Bill Mayland, you keep saying there's a max of 50 dwelling units an acre, but do you see there where it says high density multifamily at the bottom of the
Yes.
first floor? It says greater than 50 dwelling units an acre.
And we said in the TSAs.
Yes, I know, but I still do not like the use of the word greater than because there's no guardrails. It's just unlimited. Can't it have like a cap saying, greater than 50, but no greater than, 90? I mean, I would rather see a cap on that rather than unlimited.
So John, I think this is incorrect in how it's worded here. When you're looking at the land use map for the PRC, there is a 50 plus DUs per acre. That's not a TSA designation. The TSA does not use DUs per acre. The TSA is all FAR based. So the TSA areas may have a density over 50, but they treat it as FAR. So that statement there is incorrect.
I think we should just
we can work through ways. I think you have a potential resolution for Charter Oaks. We need to verify that that's under 20 Ds per acre, but I certainly think it's under 50. How you want to reflect the Harrison, which is that little, reverse C area there, can depend upon,
right there.
That gets into very unique part of the PRC that there's no intent that be more than what it is.
Yeah, but then if there's no intent, then we should say that somewhere.
So
it
that
should
may
be
be an
very
area
clear
that we've talked
because
about.
you're going to get some developer that goes, well, it doesn't say you can't go higher than 50. So I just worry that if you don't put some guardrails on there, you're going to find someone to take advantage of it. I've just got 2 other things and they don't have to be for tonight, but I'd like to talk to them about them in the future. One is in a prior conversation, the county staff gave us a whole presentation on the population of Reston. And if we do this, then it's going to be this. And if we do that, then it's going to be that. And it was this whole chart. I'd like to know where this current plan sits with regard to that presentation. Where do we fall? And if we can have that, I would like to have that presentation. Could be very small and short. The other thing I'd like to know, and maybe this is an offline conversation with staff by myself, but maybe other people are interested. I would like to know how this coordinates with the zoning, because as we know, the zoning is per person per acre, and this is about dwelling units and FAR. So how do they coordinate that when they're approving properties, and how does that align? I want to know that, but that might be something just for myself.
No,
I'd like to know that as well. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, Bill's the expert on this one. Bill.
But we can do that another time because I recognize it's after 10. So maybe we shelf that for another time, but could we maybe address that at some point?
Yeah, let's just give like 30 seconds to Bill though, because I think it is.
Oh, sorry, Bill.
So very quickly, Reston, 13 people per acre is the entire area zone PRC. Then you have areas that are planned for low, medium, high density. When you're in a low, medium, high, you have both an area that you look at all the low areas in the area, so low, medium, high, and you have a people person cap for all high, all medium, and all low. Then individual areas on a development plan have a dwelling unit cap. So for instance, when you look at Charter Oaks, that's limited to 50 dwelling units per acre because that's one development plan. But then you look at it overall, Reston's 13 people per acre, and overall high density Reston is 60 people per acre. It's complicated, but we know how to work it out.
And Myra, let me just jump in and say, one of the reasons that this is so important in going through this process, frankly, and thank you for raising those issues about making sure that the language is clear and that, things aren't unlimited, because frankly, this process will make the PRC cap issue much less important. This basically ends up becoming the controlling mechanism for the long term, not just the PRC areas, but all of Reston. So, thank you, Myra.
Thank you.
So
Can we ask the staff back for that high level comments? In the high level comments, can we have what Moira is asking for? I'm not sure we have to have a separate conversation, but I think she's asking for the effect of this plan. And I think that that would be very helpful in that first set of comments from staff. If we got the chart right, which is I think is on page 7.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's the dwelling units are there, and then converting that to residents is something somebody can do, I think.
People to population, yeah. I just will tell you quickly that the charts, as far as I know, it's adding up all of the recommendations for all of the sites, and that's what it adds up to. What you got before was a projection of what it could be. Not necessarily based on the zoning. So that was 157,000, I think, was the population. So that's the difference between
those are not, we've talked about this many times before. Those are not connected. That was a population estimate done by George Mason, and then there's one by the county. And they have nothing to do with adding up the numbers in this plan and explaining what the number is. The number is 110 to 120. And actually that's high, but that's the estimate in this. That's what comprehensive plans should have in them. So we've done that this time, but you won't get a good explanation of the difference between 157 or 170 and 110 to 120. Because they're two separate things and they don't have anything to do with this comprehensive plan in the sense of we're just explaining the numbers in the plan and adding them up.
So those numbers should be used for calculating the number of schools that you need.
Right.
To calculate the impact on the transportation system, maybe park space as well. But those are your basic numbers that are the underpinnings of the whole plan. So it is important to get those as accurate as we can make them.
And that's what we've done. And the numbers that were like 170 and 157, they are not usable for those kind of things. So they were just, somebody doing the statistical things, which I'm not going to say how well they were done, but at any rate, just to go back to John's point, I will say I think we've gone through a lot tonight, and John and Lynn and others have got the notes from this. I think, we're kind of ready for prime time to move on here. We've got to get moving on to all these, or we keep going in circles and won't get there. We got housing and economic development to do next week. There's a possibility we do the vote tonight.
This is Mike Jennings, please.
Just, and I'm not proposing that this happen now, but today we went from the back of this document to page 25. There are 24 pages before that several of us, not just me, not just Looney, commented on. So how are we going to address those comments?
If I could point out, sorry, John, I just wanted to point out that the land use portion of what you received begins on page 13 of that converted InDesign document. So we have room to add. So there's the plan introduction that's put out there, but land use itself started on page 13. Thank you.
So we were only doing the land use.
Well, I'm talking about again, I'm sorry, I'm using the red line. It starts with, this is all land use. It's the introduction, land
Yeah, I'm
use and
sorry.
design.
I thought you were looking at the InDesign.
No, I'm
file.
sorry.
No,
I'm sorry, Lynn. The introduction, starting with the introduction of the land use section up to where we stopped at the Wheelie TOD. I mean, there was lots of comments in that, all those pages.
Yeah, I think what we were doing is we just wanted to get a sense of the group based on looking at land use from a geographical perspective. So that's what we did this evening.
Okay, but I guess.
But Mike, I think we went, is that who I'm talking to?
Yes, Gary.
Yeah, I think we went through the land use chapter tonight. As far as I know, John can correct me or Lynn, but we went through that tonight.
No, not the whole thing.
Well, correct me, John and Lynn, what did we miss tonight?
I'm not sure.
We went through we went through a geographical approach that Commissioner Carter put out to the group as an option for us to try and get through, just to get a pulse on what the task force.
Right, to come to a vote. And John, what did we miss? Maybe
Let's
I'm
scroll
misunderstanding.
to the beginning of the land use chapter. Jose, just a second, just because if we didn't cover something, we right there. So this.
We went through this whole thing.
No, we didn't.
We didn't go through this.
And I'm not proposing we do it now. I'm done for tonight, and I'm not ready to vote on this, especially without any discussion of earned density. We cannot vote on this until we talk about earned density. That's my opinion.
I just wanted to be clear where you thought we stopped, and so now we're clear. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, John.
So John Carter, I know great feedback tonight. There are a lot of things. I know there was a lot of notes that you were taking and staff. So I guess what I would like to see is maybe an updated version. If I don't know if it's possible for you or Lynn to get that out in the next few days, to come back to the task force meeting. There are still perhaps some comments Mike was saying, in this section that need to be discussed. But let's see if next meeting we can get through all that, reflect the comments that or incorporate the things that you said were going to be incorporated tonight. And then let's give it one more go next week. John, would that be enough time, do you think, for you and Lynn?
Well, let's try for it. Let's see what we can do.
Let's try for it.
I honestly think that's a lot, guys. There were a lot of comments that I wrote down to get through in less than 4 days. That's near impossible, guys.
Okay.
I'd like to see us maybe move on to the other 2 chapters to give the land use group more time to get through
and finish those off, and then we slip into February a little bit. Okay. Well,
with Bill Mayland and anybody else from staff that would like to throw their 2 cents in, because it looks like we have some, they're not differences, but we need to get it right.
Okay, then let's do that. John, go ahead, keep going on the land use chapter. Let's see where things are in a few days. And if it might be ready, if the land use group is ready to come back, otherwise we could go do the other 2 items next week. And then frankly, we could also get additional input on those areas like Mike Jennings was talking about. We could do that next week, perhaps after hitting the other 2. And then have one final week then for review and cleanup. So Jen, does that sound more realistic?
Yes, that sounds much more realistic. Do the first 24 pages or however many pages we have of this, plus the other 2 chapters, because if we have edits for those, then they have time to do the edits too.
Okay. All right. Okay, let's do that. John, do you have anything else before we break?
No.
It's only been 3 hours, 20 minutes. Listen, I know this was painful a little bit at times, but I do want to thank everybody. There was a lot that was brought out tonight, and a lot of good comments, and people are clearly reading this and providing input. So thank you, and John, thank you, and Lynn for getting this out there and walking through the process. Anybody have any final comments before we finally break? Okie doke. All right. Get some sleep tonight, everybody. And we'll congregate and get back next Monday. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Walter. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you, Lynn.
Thanks for all the
Lynn,
great
you.
work. Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Night.